Hello, everybody, and welcome to the inaugural Calgary Prostate Cancer Center's live stream event, The Local Dive. My name is Bill Brooks, and I'm pleased to be co-hosting and moderating for today's exciting and powerful event with Virgin 98.5 Morning Star host Fuzzy. Hey, Fuzzy.
Bill, you are so kind. Thank you for having me here. Great to be looking forward to actually being joined by an amazing group of guests today and diving into a topic that we can all relate to, even though we don't always talk about it, and that's overcoming adversity and hardship. And if there's ever been a year to overcome adversity and hardship, I think 2020 is it. We can all agree on that, right?
No kidding, no kidding.
So we're broadcasting the live stream event from the Calgary Prostate Center, the Calgary Prostate Cancer Center at the Rocky View General Hospital here in Calgary, and we'd like to acknowledge the traditional territories of the people of Treaty 7 region in southern Alberta, and of course the city of Calgary is also home to the Métis Nation of Alberta, Region 3.
Perfect. Well, thank you, Fuzzy. Today's live stream event would not be possible were it not for our major sponsors, Agate Labs, Nutrient, and Post Media. So a big shout out and a thank you for your support.
Now, Bill, many people recognize your name from the column in the Calgary Herald that you've done for years, but not everyone knows that you're also on the board of directors for the Calgary Prostate Cancer Center. How exactly did you become first involved with the center?
Well, I've been involved, you're quite right, for more than 20 years. I think it was 23 years ago, to be precise, when my good friend Mark Wilson of Hotel Arts fame approached me to co-host a winemakers dinner, and he said, Brooksy, pick the charity of your own choosing. And it was obvious, it was a no-brainer to pick prostate cancer because my uncle had just died of the disease tragically in his late 40s. So we did our little winemakers dinner, and we raised $7,500, and we thought we were heroes. And 19 years later, we were able to raise almost $8.8 million for the center. But even more importantly, are the people at the center, from the volunteers to the staff to the patients. They're just really wonderful people. So it really is a blessing to be able to be involved with the center. I feel truly fortunate.
And what is it that keeps you motivated to keep supporting the organization?
Well, there's no other center like it in the world. Like, we really are unique, and in fact, we have become a model for many other centers that will emulate what we're doing. When a man in Calgary is diagnosed with prostate cancer, the center, we're here to guide and support both the individual and their families through the entire process. And the center provides a one-stop approach and provides direct access to all of the services they need throughout their journey. And also PCCs, clinics provide men with rapid access to consultation, diagnosis, and information on treatment options. And all of this, and this is really important for our viewers to be aware of, that all of this is funded through the generous support of donors. We do not receive a nickel from the government, so we are able to keep our doors open and offer these invaluable services through the generosity of donors and third-party events and people like you watching this live stream who are going to help us today and donate.
Yeah, that's exactly why we're here this afternoon. Today's event marks the official kickoff of the center's annual Keep It in Calgary campaign. And the keywords there are Keep It in Calgary. So, Bill, what makes this campaign different than other men's health fundraisers?
Well, it's truly unique in that it's the only fundraiser that guarantees every dollar you donate goes towards helping local men in Calgary and southern Alberta. And more than ever these days, it's important to support local, and that means supporting local businesses and local charities.
So making a local difference is at the core of the PCC, and that's why we're here today. You can join in the conversation on social. Make sure you're using the hashtag #LiveLocalGiveLocal. Again, that hashtag is #LiveLocalGiveLocal. And then you can also take action, make a donation now at keepitincalgary.ca. The website again is keepitincalgary.ca, because every dollar that you give supports men and their families here in Calgary.
That is fabulous, and I couldn't agree more. So, without further ado, we've got an amazing lineup of speakers today, and they will inspire you, maybe make your life just feel a little bit brighter. You might have a little more spring in your step, and they will share with us how they have managed to survive adversity, in some cases even thrive adversity. And the local dive kicks off with the Keep It in Calgary campaign. The lineup of people will, as I say, you're going to be quite impressed with who we have. And the local dive is interactive, so please share your questions for the speakers on social media and tag it #LiveLocalGiveLocal. So that's #LiveLocalGiveLocal. We'd also love to hear about how you've overcome adversity and how you choose to deal with hardship. You know, sharing your stories actually will help people overcome their hardships. So first up, helping us kick it off is Natalie Meisner. And Natalie is Calgary's Poet Laureate, which is pretty impressive. She's also a playwright, award-winning author, and professor at Mount Royal University in the Department of English. Natalie, thank you so much for finding time in your busy schedule to join us.
Thank you so much for having me. I knew immediately when I was asked to contribute something to this event, I knew immediately the piece that I wanted to read for you all. It's a poem that is about overcoming adversity, and it's about strength, different kinds of strength, and it's called What I Mean When I Say Heart. And so I'm very pleased to share that with you and to lend my voice as a poet to this very important cause. As a daughter, as a mom of 2 sons, as a niece, as a friend, as a best friend, this is a cause that's really, really near and dear to my heart. And I urge you all to support this cause and help in the search for a cure. So this piece is about, as I mentioned, thriving with adversity, not just coping, but learning to find strength. And I think poetry and the power of literature and sharing your stories is one of the ways that we can find to dip into that deep inner well of strength that we all have as people, and to find the strength when we need it. And so this brief poem that I'm going to share with you is called What I Mean When I Say Heart. What I mean when I say heart is something like strength. It's something like resilience. It's something like the steady power of a drenching summer rain. What I mean when I say heart is what you do when no one's watching. What you do when the chips are down. It's the course that you chart. What I mean when I say heart isn't the reliable fist-shaped organ hammering away in our chests in a steady rhythm, ba-dum-bump, ba-dum-bump, all day, every day, doing its job, keeping us alive, although that's important too. What I mean when I say heart is something like guts, what it takes to face down a nightmare in the wee hours alone. But that isn't the whole of it, no. What I mean when I say heart is something like true grit, something like what it takes to get up when you're knocked down again and again, but also to change a diaper, to comfort a crying child. What I mean when I say heart is not either toughing it out. It's not stiff upper lip. It's not staying silent in the face of pain, no. What I mean when I say heart is throwing open the doors and letting us in, each and every one of us who loves you and whose fate is tied to your own. That's what I mean when I say heart. Thanks very much.
Wow.
That's awesome, Natalie. That's fantastic. Now, you have a book of poems called Batty One Shoe that is a collection of odes to renegade women, right?
Yes, absolutely.
Because renegade women, they are constantly facing that tough time, like so many of us are right now.
Yes. Yeah, and finding that kind of power when you're knocked down to get up again. And that's something I explore a lot in that book. And something I'm also really interested in are the different kinds of strength. Like, one of the things I wanted to get at here is that I think often we're urged to find our power or find our strength by kind of sucking it up or having that stiff upper lip. But I wanted to also urge that there's sort of strength and power in vulnerability and in throwing those doors open and kind of letting folks in and taking help when we need it. I think there's a lot of strength and a lot of power in that, you know, for both men and women.
Natalie, you mentioned finding your voice and finding your strength. There's a lot of people that find creative writing very therapeutic. How would you suggest that someone use writing to get them through a difficult time?
I think that writing something or being creative, whether it is, working on a poem or whether it is painting a picture, I think it's one of those unqualified human goods. Like, it's something that we can do for ourselves, similar to communing with nature, that is almost always good for us because it's connecting with ourselves. It is also connecting with community, and it's also giving us perspective. Like, if we have an adverse experience, we sometimes feel trapped, and working on a piece of creative writing lets us kind of live two lives at the same time. There's the self that's maybe here in the room dealing with something, but then there's another self that's out there, kind of looking at the universe from this kind of dialed out perspective. And I think it's good for us no matter what. My Poet Laureate project that we're just in the midst of launching now is called This Might Help. And it is a collection of poems written by and for Calgarians that address certain topics. So that's why I really love this opportunity, the chance to address strength and adversity. That kind of opportunity to either write something or to read something that can actually help us. I think that's one of the things that literature can do for us now in pandemic and all the time.
Now, what about comedic pieces? Is there something that to be said for comedy and the use of comedy when you're facing a tough time?
Absolutely. I always talk about, I always think of comedy as my personal flotation device, or as my life vest. I didn't choose, today I didn't choose to share a comic piece with you. I wanted to do something. It was just the first piece that came to me that I was working on, the piece about the different meanings of heart and grit and strength. But I do think that comedy is one of those wells that we can kind of dip down in there and find a lot of strength in it. So I always think of it as, my life raft or my life vest. And if there is room to joke, like if you can find a joke inside you, it usually can offer a lot of strength to the people around you. I love comedy.
Wow. Well put. Natalie, thank you. Those are words to live by, and thank you for sharing with us today. Bless your soul and continued success. And thank you to everyone watching this live stream of the Local Dive and helping us kick off Calgary Prostate Cancer Center's Keep It In Calgary campaign. And don't forget that every donation supports men's health initiatives right here in Calgary and Southern Alberta. And there's never been a better time to support PCC as we all work to enhance the health of men across Calgary and Southern Alberta. So please support by visiting keepitincalgary.ca. And I just want to give a shout out to the fabulous folks at Trail Appliances. They've supported us for years and years. They've kicked in a marvelous $25,000 towards the campaign. So thank you, Trail Appliances. Over to you, Fuzz.
Now, we have two very special guests that are going to be joining us, both well-known businessmen in Calgary and also prostate cancer survivors who have been amazing spokesmen for the importance of PSA testing and early detection. So join me in welcoming in Bret Wilson and George Brookman. As many of you know, Bret is the Dragon Emeritus of the 3 seasons on Dragon's Den. He's built an extensive holdings in power generation, real estate development, cannabis, agriculture, sports and entertainment industries. And I've actually been handed a piece of paper here that says a little known fact that our very own co-host Bill Brooks wanted to be just like Bret Wilson. And the doctor said, okay, well, you've got prostate cancer. So that is an actual thing. Now, George Brookman is also well-known in Calgary's business and volunteer community. His business, West Canadian Industries Group, is Canada's leading digital print and document management organization. George serves on the board for the Field of Crosses, Calgary Flames Foundation, and the Castle Avery Hospitality Ventures. So this afternoon, we're talking about how we can overcome adversity and hardship, which is something that you're both familiar with. Bret, can you share your experience with prostate cancer and what that fight taught you?
Oh, hey, Fuzzy, we got Bret's not quite on yet. We're joined by George right now.
Okay, so about that, George. We're going to start with you. So, George, after your diagnosis, did you approach your health challenge the same way that you approached business, or did you take a bit of a different approach?
Well, that's a great question. And let me just make sure, first of all, that you can hear me all right, and that you just wave your hand and let me know that it's coming through loud and clear. Perfect.
Loud and clear. I got you, George.
Perfect. Well, it's a bit of a shakeup when your doctor phones you and says, guess what? You've got to go and have an examination at the prostate center. And but I was pretty fatalistic about it, to be honest. I hate to sound cavalier, but at the end of the day, it didn't really disrupt my world very much at all. And you have a kind of a moment when you think you're going to change the way you live your life, and you're going to do all sorts of things differently. And then a few months later, you find yourself doing just the same things again. And I've been very fortunate. I'm very healthy today, and virtually unscathed by the experience.
Do you find that you have a different view on life after going through this battle? Has there been a sort of a shift in your priorities?
I wish I could say that it has, but truth is, I was always, I care a great deal about my family, so that hasn't changed. I remember when they wheeled me in, and they give you a shot, and then you lay there for about 40 minutes before they take you into the operating room. And I remember that moment thinking, what if this doesn't work out? And you always have those thoughts. And thinking, well, I'm not unhappy with my life. I built a nice business. I have a good family. I was with the Stampede. I have made it a mark. So I felt good about it. And when I came out, I still felt good. So I think, I've been very fortunate. I feel very energetic. It's 10, 12 years now since I had my surgery, and my life has carried on very well and straightforward.
And that's what we like to hear. And that's one of the reasons why the Prostate Cancer Center here in Calgary does so many great things. And it helps people like you and men all over the city. I'm being told that we have Bret on the line right now. Bret, are you there?
I'm as here as I can be.
Excellent, Bret. Bret, can you share your experience with prostate cancer and what that fight taught you?
Oh God, have we got an hour?
For you, we'll make the time. So
I'm a three-timer now, and the week I turned 44, I was first diagnosed with, at that time, a pretty serious case of prostate cancer, and I chose a radiation protocol that called brachytherapy that was considered by many to be experimental, but I was one of the first Canadians to go down that path, and it was out of that I discovered the gap between where we were in Canada and some of the other parts of the world. And of course, there's technology's always racing forward in different places, and that was a big part of the stimulus behind the work I did with Doc Siemens in terms of advancing, the urology center for Southern Alberta at the Rocky View Hospital. Anyway, round one, brachytherapy. Had some serious side effects from called radiation cystitis, which is internal bleeding and burning of the urethra, and we're not going to get into a lot more detail than that, except to say that was by far the most challenging part of my treatment protocol. Then round two was 14 years later, 5 years ago, and I ended up with discovering that my lymph nodes, 4 or 5 of them, were fairly active in terms of recurrent prostate cancer. And the good news is I'd made it past 10 years, which clinically they say once you're past 10, you're clear. Well, I got to 14 and discovered I wasn't clear. And then we got through that, radiation again, and then unfortunately I had one third run, and I haven't really talked much about it publicly, but I'm not ashamed of it in that sense. But I had another tumor discovered in my spine last summer, and had the incredible help. I hadn't fully appreciated how far the Tom Baker had advanced, but I worked very closely with an oncologist, a radiation specialist, and we radiated the tumor in my spine very successfully right in the middle of Stampede last year. So, and it didn't interrupt my stampeding at all. It was a pretty straightforward process. But what I'm most proud of is that I can go anywhere in the world for treatment. Calgary was the best place for me. So 3 runs, been there, done that, got the cup of coffee, and onward. And I'm pretty proud of what we've done in Southern Alberta in terms of looking after men's health, urology health, in particular prostate health.
Yeah, I'd like to pick up on what Bret just said as well. I had Dr. Kozak as my surgeon, and there's no way that I could say enough about him. He was serious. He was humorous. He was encouraging at all times. I remember after my surgery, I get a call from him, and he said, I've got really good news. And I said, what's that? He said, well, we just got your final biopsy results, and you definitely had cancer. I said, why is that good news? And he said, well, you wouldn't want to go through all that and then not have it, would you?
And that's the benefit to early detection, right? Is getting that, so that way you can get those treatments, so that way they can fight it early, right?
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Well, I've said, sorry to interrupt, I've said several times that prostate cancer is a great disease to catch early and a terrible disease to catch late. And that's where awareness and knowledge is power. And I am incredibly frustrated by the medical community that says, don't bother getting your PSA tested until you're 40, 50, whatever the number is. Knowledge is power. And so if I'd had my PSA done when the year that I turned 40 instead of 43, I would have had knowledge and more options. The other thing is that the earlier you catch prostate cancer, and again, I'm an amateur, but I'm a fairly seasoned amateur, the more options you have, whether it's surgery or radiation, and there's different forms of radiation, but the earlier you catch it, the more knowledge you have. And they sometimes say that a falsely inflated or elevated PSA will unnecessarily disturb the recipient of the news. And I'm thinking that's an issue for his doctor to deal with. If he can't handle giving the information correctly and couch it such that not everyone with an elevated PSA has cancer, but without knowing that your PSA is elevated, you're not going to look anyway, and then it's potentially too late.
And also a couple of days of worry as opposed to a couple of days of undiagnosed, or a couple of years of undiagnosed cancer. I'd rather have the worry than the undiagnosed cancer.
Perfect.
Right?
Oh, there's no doubt about it. And I was always diligent about going and having a checkup every year. So I was never one of those folks that say, well, I hadn't been checked for 5 years. I hadn't been to the doctor for 5 years or whatever. And so I caught mine very, very early in the game and had great consultation. And as I say, Kozak did a fantastic job.
Now, Bret, earlier, George talked about basically whether or not he addressed how he approaches business and life after the diagnosis. Did you notice a big difference?
Yeah, I can actually get kind of emotional thinking about the first time cancer came into my life, the little C on your shoulder where you're just not sure what's next. And, I was 43, 44 years old. I'd had a career that had me working some incredibly long hours. And as cancer came into my life, I realized that I was very incomplete in terms of my relationships with some key friends, and then more particularly my family. And so I took advantage of, call it the cancer scare, to refocus and double down or triple up my efforts to be more complete, if you will, in terms of family relationships. Thus, when I was diagnosed with the second round of cancer 14 years later, I was pretty chill. I mean, I didn't want to die of cancer, but I was also very complete in the sense that if cancer got me this time, I was happy that I had built the relationships I cared about in terms of family and friends. And then I set about fighting it. And I certainly have another 20, 30 years of plans to continue to tweet and fight and do what I do in terms of enjoying the West.
If there's one message that you guys could pass on each, I'll get George, I'll get you to go first. If there's one message you could pass on to people watching right now, what would that be?
Get it regular checkups, stay very positive, and don't worry. Just take each day as it comes and give it your best.
And Bret, for you?
Well, I'm going to go big picture and say we should be supporting Aaron O'Toole, but I'm not sure what are the topics that we're allowed to cover here today.
Bret, we're not getting into politics.
Okay, I just want you asked for advice.
No, I don't make me regret it, Bret.
So, yeah, I mean, I think George went down the exact path, and it goes back to the earlier conversation about knowledge is power. Getting checked. I mean, when I first was diagnosed, there was a lot of talk about a PSA of 4 being, call it the gold standard. If you were below 4, you were probably fine. If you were above 4, you might have a problem. Well, I think the evolution of knowledge is that it's the change in PSA. It's how rapid is it growing. If it's steady at 4 for many years and then takes off, you might have a problem. But at the same time, I've had several friends with prostate cancer whose PSAs went from 1.5 to 3, all of that well below the standard of 4, but it's the change in the PSA. So it really comes down to plotting a chart, not a data point, but setting up a chart. And the earlier you start that, 35, 40, I'd certainly recommend that. And then, I mean, I'm at a point in my life where I'm getting PSA tested every 2 to 3 months because we monitor and watch very carefully. There's little doubt that on recurrent cancer, the recurrent prostate cancer, the change in PSA is a fairly strong indicator that you have a problem somewhere. And there's lots of different treatment protocols and testing protocols and scan protocols. But most importantly, the PSA is how it all starts in terms of the first tidbit of knowledge. And as George says, get checked.
I think one of the interesting points that you made earlier, Bret, is that out of anywhere in the world that you could get treatment, and not only the treatment, but I think the support, because that's exactly what the Calgary Prostate Cancer Center gives, is that additional support in addition to the medical aspect of it. Calgary has something that a lot of other places don't.
Well, we've certainly got the Southern Institute, or the Southern Alberta Institute of Urology, and as much as my name's on the building, credit goes 100% to Doc Siemens and his family and the efforts that Doc put together. Doc tapped me on the shoulder one day and asked if I'd like to participate, and it was the right day, the right time, and I said yes, but it was Doc's initiative all the way. The other is that, just to tell a story a bit out of school, I went to Tom Baker last summer to get treated, and of course I was a little apprehensive about being recognized and wearing baseball cap and sunglasses and all that stuff. But literally, you go downstairs, and Tom Baker's an older building, but I remember coming through a sliding door into the one of the new of the radiation tools, and it was like a step. It was Captain Kirk and the Enterprise. It was unbelievable how modern and state-of-the-art that everything was inside the treatment room where I did my radiation on my spine. I was pretty proud. I didn't know about that. I trusted the people. And again, a lot of your treatment protocols are based on the people and how you trust, because there's a science, but there's also an art, and that art comes from experience. And so it's the application of science. And I came away very, very comfortable, and without naming doctors, because there's lots that are great, but the 2 or 3 that I was closely linked to were outstanding. I was really, really pleased. And but then walking into that room, as I say, the control center and the screens and the computers, and I had my 2 grandsons and my daughter and her husband were with me the first morning that I went for treatment, and everyone was just wide-eyed at the quality of what was living inside this sort of nondescript old building. It was outstanding. Something I'm very proud of.
Bret, you're making a great comment there, and I don't want to leave without making this comment. We hear so much about healthcare on the media these days, but in my years of experiences, and it's more decades than I want to count, I can never get over the quality of healthcare that we have in this province, certainly in Calgary and up there. And but whether it was for my family or myself or whatever, we are very blessed with good healthcare in this area.
Oh, absolutely. We've got great people. And as much as I give some of the doctors grief in terms of our overall medical budget, I believe that every medical professional is entitled to reasonable compensation. And just for the record, I'm going back into the clinic for a fairly significant checkup and probably procedure next week. So I'm pretty happy that whole system is working as well as it is with the people that we have.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Now, we've talked about early detection. I think early treatment is also something that is great that we have here in this city. When I arrived here earlier today, they gave me a bit of a tour of the facilities, and they walked me around, and they were talking about how the way that things are set up here at the Calgary Prostate Cancer Center, the treatments happen within days as opposed to within weeks or months. Can either of you talk about that?
Go first, Bret. You go first, Bret.
Well, my first experience with getting the biopsy, and frankly, the biopsy was a little more challenging than I expected, but we got that done on day 1. And George is smiling because I can.
I'll tell you a story.
Yeah. You want to talk about your anyway? That snap, click, whoa. Anyway, men who've been down this path know exactly what we're talking about. But again, it's something that has to be done. It's just part of the process, the protocol, the procedures. But in my case, my enormous frustration was in the people side, where it was something like 10 days between when my testing was done and when I actually got a phone call saying, hey, you've got cancer. And I know that we've accelerated that dramatically. I think the testing results might have sat on a desk for 4 or 5 days. Things were busier. Maybe people didn't feel like it was panic mode reaction. It's not like a brain tumor where they want to do surgery an hour later. But the flip side is I, sitting waiting for my results, was pretty apprehensive and pretty anxious. My understanding now of what we've accomplished with the Prostate Center and the quick turn is extraordinary. Fast results, fast coaching, fast response, and it's timely and appreciated by all men.
Well, I didn't want to know that badly, so I guess you were different than me. But the truth is, I think I had my first diagnosis on the 30th of April, and I had the surgery on the 1st of June. So I thought it moved very quickly. But I remember a couple of funny stories, and Bret's talking about that wonderful biopsy procedure, which is not too much fun. But I decided to go in and tell a few jokes, which I did. And the young lady or the nurse in there said, well, that's the first time I've actually laughed while I was doing this procedure. And there was a gentleman there, which I made a joke with, and I won't bother with telling you that story. But I do remember arriving, and you're supposed to drink, I don't know, a gallon of water before you get there, because you're supposed to, I don't know, fill out. And of course, I took a taxi up, but I forgot to drink the water. So I stopped the taxi, drank all this water, and went in. And as soon as this nurse came over, she said, you didn't drink the water, did you? I said, yes, I did. No, but you didn't drink it when you were supposed to drink it. I said, no, I didn't. You're right. So she says, well, we'll see what we can do anyway. And she turned the lights down the room, and the radiation thing came on. It was kind of red. And I said, if you bring out wine, we're having a date right now.
George, someone just taped this, I'm sure.
Anyway, I had her laughing. Then we went in the other room, and at first I wasn't going to laugh. And then I thought, well, I might as well laugh, because you're not going to get through it any other way.
Well, keeping a sense of humor through all of this is important.
It's very important.
And, you know, again, it goes back, though, to the big picture. You know, we've got some of the best people doing some of the best work, and I'm pretty proud to be even slightly associated, even through doing this work. George and I we've overlapped on dozens and dozens of different charitable and community initiatives, and this is probably one of the most important in terms of men's health.
Yeah, for sure.
Gentlemen, thank you very much for joining us today. Bret Wilson, George Brookman, your continued support of the Calgary Prostate Cancer Center right here in Calgary is very much appreciated. Thank you for all the work that you do, and for all of the work that you continue to do going forward.
We look forward to our next talk on politics.
Absolutely.
Bret, don't do this to me.
Zip.
Take good care.
The local dive is the start of Calgary Prostate Cancer Center's Keep It in Calgary campaign, supporting Calgary's best kept secret. We're going to take a few minutes here to learn a little bit more about this amazing center.
Before we get started, let's get one thing clear. I don't want to talk about my prostate, and I think I'm pretty typical. I'm 43, I never think about my health, and I think a PSA is a pizza stand alert. Stay with me, that's going to be a joke. Plus, biggest surprise of all, until recently, I'd never heard of this amazing place. I learned about Calgary's Prostate Cancer Center by becoming one of the 1 in 7 Canadian men who are diagnosed with prostate cancer in their lifetime. I'm going to survive that diagnosis, and this is why. The Prostate Cancer Center provides information, expertise, and emotional support to me and my family. I found my way here after a visit to the Man Van. The van's one of a kind, a mobile unit that goes out to Calgary communities with a simple test. No, not this test. In the Man Van, trained staff give a free, simple PSA blood test. So now you know, PSA does not mean pizza stand alert. It's really an early tool in the detection of prostate cancer. Catch the disease early, treat it early, that's how men win. Of course, Calgary is not the only place you'll find a man van. A second man van is dedicated to rural southern Alberta. The results of those PSA tests go straight back to the Prostate Cancer Centre. This is where the country's top urologists, nurses, support staff, and a small army of dedicated volunteers continue the process of diagnosis, treatment, and recovery. What makes the centre unique is the rapid access clinics. Clinics 1 and 2 deliver speedy diagnosis and treatment options. Clinics 3, 4, and 5 are integrated post-treatment. An ongoing, personalized check on your progress, an opportunity to ask questions, get referrals, and obtain access to specialized urologists. All along the journey, volunteers add their magic. You'll learn about the library, the resource center, and one-on-one peer support. My personal highlight was speaking to a volunteer right before my biopsy. He took me from anxious to okay in no time. And after your treatment, the help just keeps coming. From wellness, to exercise, to sexual intimacy. Post-operative programs are the heart of personalized support for you and your family. As if all that wasn't enough, the center's been recognized nationally and internationally as a research center for clinical trials. At this point, you're probably thinking, how is all this funded? Well, everything runs on the generous support of sponsors, local events, and individuals, many of whom have a personal story about prostate cancer. Guys like Doc Seaman and Bret Wilson, even guys like me. So, what happens now? Well, I know what's here, and I know how to use it, so I'm in a real good place. You deserve the same. Let's give the Prostate Cancer Centre the support it deserves.
Wow, very cool indeed. And you can see how truly fortunate we are to have a place like the Calgary Prostate Cancer Centre. And if you'd like to support this amazing organization today, visit keepitincalgary.ca. So that's keepitincalgary.ca. And please make a donation. And before we move on to our next guest, I just want to thank again our major sponsors, Agate Laboratories, for helping make the local dive live stream event possible. So here, we're just going to show you another quick little video. We'll be right back. Wow. Thank you, Agate Laboratories. We couldn't be the success that we are without your invaluable support. So next, I'm pleased to welcome our two next panel guests, David Spence and Licia Corbella. You'll of course know David as the chief meteorologist for CTV Calgary. David was diagnosed with prostate cancer in 2012. David received brachytherapy treatment in early 2013. The treatment was successful, and David's PSA levels have been undetectable for several years. Welcome, David, and thank you for joining us.
Thank you, Bill.
Yeah, thank you. And Licia Corbella is one of Calgary's most popular opinion columnists, and I'm the biggest fan of Licia's. We've worked together for almost 30 years, maybe even a bit longer, and Licia knows a thing or two about battling adversity. In 2015, at the age of 52, Licia was diagnosed with triple-negative breast cancer, the least common and most aggressive form of breast cancer. Nearly dying, nearly killed her. From the treatments designed to cure the cancer, Licia never called the harsh chemotherapy she endured, quote, quote, poison, as she'd heard so many other cancer patients say. Instead, she called it her life-extending medicine. So thank you for joining us, Licia. So Licia and David, you've obviously kept a positive attitude throughout the entire journey. And David, even during this blizzard, and we'll talk about the weather later, like what's going on? So I'll start with you, David. There's an abundance of information out there about cancer and treatment, some good and others not. David, what resources did you use and rely on that aided you in your cancer journey?
Before I get into that, Bill, I just want to say something of a personal note. You and I, we don't run into each other a lot, but when we do, you always stop and you always ask me how I'm doing, how my health is. And that is appreciated more than I think you will ever know. And thank you for that. I just want to turn it around here. Did I hear Fuzzy correctly earlier saying that you have now been diagnosed?
No, actually, the quote, the joke should have been that George Brookman said to the doc, "I want to be just like Bret Wilson," and the doc said, "You have prostate cancer." So yeah, no, it was
okay.
Yeah,
good.
No,
good to hear.
No, fortunately, touch wood. So far, I'm fine. But thank you, David.
All right. Now, to answer your question, which I believe was what kind of resources I relied on. I think, of course, obviously, the main resource was the doctors that I had to deal with. And as Bret and George put so very well earlier, we have some of the finest people in the medical community and the prostate cancer community, I think, in the world. I received brachytherapy, as you mentioned. If you're not familiar with brachytherapy, and I'm sure most of the people watching this are, but if you're not, it's the implantation of radioactive seeds into the prostate. So I had radioactive iodine seeds. They're about the size of a grain of rice. I believe I had over 80 of them implanted into my prostate. And what those seeds do is they release radiation over a period of 20 months to slowly kill the cancer cells. Unfortunately, they also kill the healthy cells too. There's not much you can do about that. But it did work wonders for me. So I was fortunate to have, as my radiation oncologist, Dr. Siraj Hussain, who happens to be a world leader in brachytherapy treatment. And he's right here in Calgary. And it was just a stroke of really good fortune to have him as my oncologist. At the time, this was 8 years ago, they only had the funding to treat 100 men with brachytherapy every year. And that's it in Calgary. So I was very fortunate to be one of those and to be under Dr. Hussain's care. Now, brachytherapy, of course, at the time and still is a fairly rare treatment. So I did go through a lot of resources. Of course, you look online at things from everything from WebMD all the way to scientific research papers in this, and I looked at that. And you do have to filter out the good from the bad. But there's one resource that really, really helped me, and that's a website called Healing Well. It's not a website where you find scientific information. It's not a website where you find doctors. It's just a website where you find other people going through what you're going through. And as long as you can successfully sort the good advice from the bad, this is an incredibly good resource because it's real and you can really, really get a lot out of it.
That's fantastic. And your PSA levels are non-detectable, and you, of course, get tested every year, and you're feeling right as rain.
Well, you know what? I get tested every year, but now I'm down to 2 years on checkups. So
that's fantastic. Bravo.
I've gone from 6 months to 1 year to 2 years. So the doctors are pretty confident, and I'm happy about that, obviously.
Oh, congratulations. That's fantastic. Now, Licia, my dear.
Silly darling.
Hello. We call it Silly darling.
I
love you more. We'll just do love it. So walk us through. I remember it was a Friday when you got the dreaded news. You'd worked a 12-hour, a light day for you at the paper. It was a 12-hour, and you got the dreaded news, and you went off to an event that night.
I went to the Bill Brooks Rockabilly prostate cancer event. And, normally I have such a blast at that event. It's my favorite event of the year, as you know. And you've raised so much money, Bill. And, I just want to let everyone know that, Bill has done more than almost anyone in the province to help men with cancer. And so, you're one of my heroes, Billy, and I love you.
Thank you.
So I went to your event, and I didn't have as much fun as I usually have at your event because I've literally been told by a doctor, you have cancer, and it wasn't the official diagnosis, but he said this has been there for a while, and get ready, basically. And so that was in January, I think 30th.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was your event at Hotel Arts, and I saw you and you were looking so great. But yeah, so for me, the kind of information that I got was a lot from my doctors, and I had amazing doctors. We are so lucky in Calgary and Alberta. The doctors we have and the resources we have at the Tom Baker Cancer Center. And I had Dr. Sasha Lupachuk as my oncologist. And but also there's some other really amazing resources. So when you're going through the cancer journey, your doctors will say, well, there's going to be a session on chemo or a session on health, like eating or vitamins or radiation and all of those things. And, my husband and I, Stephen was by my side right through the whole thing. And we went to every single one of those sessions, and you can ask questions. And then there's also a great resource called Wellspring Calgary, which is for cancer patients and their families. And they have courses, like whimsical ones like watercolor and other ones to help you deal with your brain fog that's caused by the chemo or cancer. And, I use that. And then for me personally, there's an organization called the Calgary Breast Cancer Supportive Care Center. And it is, oh my gosh, such an amazing place. It looks at you in total. So there are counselors there if you're struggling with mental health issues or depression or something. I mostly went and just saw my doctor, Dr. Ardith Taylor, who was one of the founders of it. And they have a resource library there, and it's peaceful, and there's soft music and green tea that you can sip on and courses you can take. And so I availed myself of as much as that as I could. I suffered from really severe cancer-related fatigue and cancer-related brain fog, but I got over that and ended up back at work, and very happy about that.
And you're totally fine now, my dear? Everything is fine?
Yeah, well, it's been 5 years, and most people get the all clear after 5 years. But with triple negative breast cancer, you sort of wait 7 years for that. But the thing with the triple negative, it's such an aggressive type of breast cancer that if you don't get it by 7 years, the likelihood of it ever coming back is almost nothing. So I feel really confident that we got it. Like the chemo was harsh. So it nearly did me in a couple of times there, Billy, but it killed all the cancer. I have no doubt of that.
Wow. Thank goodness. No, but David and Licia, you're both family-oriented individuals. David, how important was it for you to have the support of your family during your prostate cancer journey?
Well, this is an interesting story. Most of my family did not know at first for a couple of reasons. Yeah. I was diagnosed 8 years ago, and at the time I had 2 children in middle school, 1 child in high school, and I was diagnosed in mid-November. And I didn't want to ruin their Christmas, so I didn't tell them.
Wow.
My mother at the time was quite frail. She was in her 90s, and my sister had gone through a very serious cancer fight, which she successfully fought and survived and is doing well today. But that was very hard on my mother. So I thought if she were to find out that I had cancer, that could be it. That could be the end of it.
Oh, wow.
So I did not tell her. I did not tell my children. I told my wife. I told my sister. I told my employers. But that's it. I pretty much went through this without a whole lot of family support for a long time. I was diagnosed in November, and it was February of 2013 when I had my treatment. And they do the brachytherapy treatments right back then. It might still be the same. They did them on Tuesdays. So I told my kids the weekend before the Tuesday I went in for the treatment. And by that time, I had done a lot of research on it. I was very confident that the treatment would work. It did have a tremendous success rate. It was in the 90 percentile. Yeah. And I was able to give them the news in a good way. I was able to tell them a lot of positive things that were down the road for me if all went well. Of course, there's always a chance it will not go well, but the chances were pretty good that it would. So I was able to break the news to them in a more positive way than if I had told them right away. Nonetheless, it was 2 days before the procedure, and that day was awfully traumatic on them. They did go to school that morning, but my daughter left for school in tears. And the procedure is a day procedure. You go in the morning, you come out at the end of the day. So, of course, everybody was just thrilled when I came home that night. Everybody but me, because I was in some discomfort, to say the least. But it was at that point that I started to get support from my kids. I never did tell my mother. She passed without knowing. And I also did not go public with it because I didn't want my mother to find out publicly. So I also did not reveal to the public until the end of 2014, which is 2 years after my diagnosis, what had happened. So yes, I did go through a lot of it myself, but of course my wife knew all along, and she was a tremendous source of support. And my sister was too, because she had gone through a cancer battle, and she was able to offer a lot of encouragement as well.
Oh, wow. Now, Licia, you have wonderful Stephen and your 2 twin boys, and I know your family is very, very, very important to you.
Yeah.
And also your faith. So what got you through this? What helped you dig deep and get through it?
Goodness. All of those things. So for me, Stephen went to every single one of my appointments with me, except, the ones at the Breast Cancer Supportive Care Center. And my kids. So when I woke up from my surgery for the lumpectomy, my boys were sitting right by the bed, as was Stephen. When I was hospitalized because I had an infection and I had no immune system, my kids would come and visit me. And this is just before they graduated from high school. So, I couldn't go out and get their tuxes with them and all of that. But, they would come and visit me and they'd cheer me up. And, you're losing your hair and you're feeling terrible. And that was, so that was great. And then, my faith, I don't know how people get through things like that without faith. Like for me, Jesus says that he is close to the brokenhearted, and that he encourages us to cast all of our cares and worries on him. And that's what I did. And so I'm a pretty upbeat person most of the time. And my faith journey with my husband, we prayed every day, and I told everyone. So, it was announced in the paper that I was leaving because of cancer, and I asked people to pray for me, and I got lots of prayer, and I believe prayer works. Yeah. And so, oh my gosh, that was so important to me. And, we did, I read the Bible and prayed every morning and night. And so, yeah, that was a really important part for me. And I felt like I didn't feel like I wanted to blog about it and be that open about it, but I did want people to know. And I was really helpful. My church really came alongside me and helped me a lot. And oh my gosh, the love, just so much love. I had flowers in my house from other people for 1 year.
Oh, isn't that wonderful?
Every time one bouquet would start dying, I'd get another bouquet of flowers from someone, like my dad or a senator in Ottawa, or just, a girlfriend, Julie, or something like that, right? Just amazing love from so many people, lots of notes of encouragement, and that all helps, right?
Oh, no kidding. Well, you're much beloved, my dear. You're much beloved.
As are you. I like the COVID beard, by the way.
Oh, gee, thank you. Yeah. Thank you. Yeah. You threw me off there. So I'm going to throw this to David, and then Licia, I'd like you to weigh in as well. The role of media, and both of you being well-known media, and I know you wouldn't like the word celebrities, but you're well-known, and everybody knows who you are. Having faced the challenges that you faced, do you feel an additional responsibility? Like David, do you feel a responsibility to say, guys, go and get checked above age 40, or how do you feel about that?
Wow. Like Bret and George earlier, I just can't say enough about how important that is.
Yeah.
I don't hear it so much now, but a couple of years ago, we heard, that the doctors didn't want to test unless there was reason to until a certain age or whatever. What a bunch of nonsense. Yeah. When I was tested, my family doctor broke some rules to get me tested ever since he started treating me 25 years ago. So I was, in my 30s when he started me on PSA testing. And because of that, the baseline was set at a very, very young age. And that's how he found out that I may have prostate cancer. I had the little finger test like everybody does.
Sure.
But it didn't show anything. But he sent me for tests. At that time, I think it was once a year. He included PSA as part of the regular workup of blood tests that he would send me for, even though he really wasn't supposed to technically. And he noticed a rise in the PSA. And he said, I think maybe you should go and get this checked out. And he didn't wait for another test to confirm that the PSA was still rising. He was just on it, just like that. So then he sent me up to the Prostate Cancer Center. Dr. Metcalf ordered the biopsy, and as George said before, oh my gosh, that might have been the worst, the most uncomfortable thing of the whole procedure was the biopsy. But anyway, it was done, and it did confirm Gleason 7 prostate cancer, which means it was intermediate risk. It had to be treated right away. But I guess back to the point, if my family doctor didn't send me for those PSAs early, then it would have not been caught that early. Let's say he sent me for the first PSA at 50. Then my baseline would be that higher level instead of the lower level that it was when he sent me earlier. So he would think that higher level was the normal, but it wasn't. And because of that, I was diagnosed early, treated successfully. I mean, prostate cancer, they tell you 10 years before they can declare you cured, and we're not there yet. But and we all know what happened with Bret Wilson. But without that, the outcome undoubtedly would have been far worse.
Yeah, that's so cool. Which, unfortunately, Licia, we're just about out of time, so I can't give you equal opportunity. But do we know? I'm going to switch gears completely here. I think it's 1 o'clock. We know in 2 minutes is an election been called federally. I can't wait to read the column tomorrow.
Oh yeah, no, I'm writing a piece about the National Energy Program, the 40th anniversary. So I'm not writing for tomorrow, but yeah, I don't know yet. I'm gonna key in on that. I hope there's no election, and I hope that the committee goes ahead. I think this is just absurd.
Yeah. Oh, it's insane in these times. Well, listen, I can't thank you both enough, David and Licia. You're inspiring. God bless your souls, and thank you for taking time out of your busy lives to share your journey and your stories. And to all those people watching, I'm sure they just feel a little bit better about their lives after listening to the two of you. So thank you.
Oh, blessings to you, Billy. Hello, David, and goodbye. And we'll see you all later. And I hope, people should donate and help our men. Yeah.
Thank you.
And thank you for inviting me to take part in this. It was absolutely tremendous. Happy to do it. Proud to do it. Good to see the both of you again. We don't see each other enough.
Yeah.
Okay. Amen to that. I couldn't agree more. Thank you. So I'd also like to thank Post Media for their tremendous support throughout this campaign. Post Media have helped us, been an invaluable supporter for years and years here at the Prostate Center. And we're just so very grateful to Post Media for everything they've done for us and continue to do so. Thank you. Over to you, Fuzzy.
So Keep It in Calgary is about living local and giving local, and that's why we're asking you to use the hashtag Live Local, Give Local. There are several local businesses that have committed to supporting the Calgary Prostate Cancer Center during the month of November, and we want to take a moment here to thank them. One of them is Good Mood Brewing. Good Mood Brewing is brewing up a special hibiscus and rose hip cream ale with $1 from the sale of every 6-pack that goes to supporting the PCC. If you're a local business and you want to support the Calgary Prostate Cancer Center, then you can visit the business sign-up section on keepitincalgary.ca.
Hockey fans will be very familiar with our next guest, Kelly Hrudey. Kelly is a Gemini-winning broadcaster who brings his expert insight as a former NHL goaltender to Sportsnet. There he is. Kelly works as a studio analyst for Hockey Night in Canada and joins Calgary Flames regional broadcast team as game analyst throughout the week. Kelly lives in Calgary with his wife and is a proud father of 3 daughters. And while away from the broadcast booth, is a passionate mental health advocate. Welcome, Kelly. Thank you so much for making time to be with us today. And I understand you're out of town now. Are you in Calgary?
No, we're in Whistler. So after this strange hockey season, Bill, we took off, and we had my mom come down and visit a little bit in Calgary, and then we drove her back to Edmonton, and then we decided to go on a little bit of a road trip. So that's where my lovely wife, Dawn, and I find ourselves right now. It's been a crazy year, as you know, Bill. And by the way, it's really nice to be on with you. I've been a big fan of yours for so long. All the work that you've done with the Rockabilly Cancer Ball. I've never been able to join you, unfortunately, because it's always been during the hockey season. So I've missed it, but I've watched your work from afar, and I think you've raised, what, over $8 million bucks. So that's phenomenal for you. I'm just so impressed.
That's so kind of you to say. Well, if I can be half the man you are, then my life has been well lived, my friend. True.
You don't want to go down that road, Bill.
Well, so, you know, it especially for guys to be able to talk about mental health issues and depression. It's something guys don't do. We're not supposed to. And we were probably brought up, I know I certainly was, if you weren't allowed to cry, let alone ever feel sorry for yourself. So why tackling your mental health issues of critical importance, and what was the impetus that you came out to share it? I'm sure it wasn't easy.
Well, first of all, to comment on your message about guys aren't normally willing to talk about that, I've been always quite open, more open as of late, but I am a crier, so I'm the kind of guy that I go to a wedding and I cry. I'm just so happy for the people, so right?
Oh gosh, I weep like a baby watching The Sound of Music, so there you go.
I mean, I'm that guy. So, and I'm not ashamed of that at all. That's just me. That's how I was born. I'm going to go down that road. But what our sort of journey, I guess, as a family, before I recognized I had some mental health issues, I didn't know what it was. I just sort of called it to, like, I was going through an episode or a time in my life where, man alive, I just couldn't handle life. I just couldn't handle being an NHL goalie. It just got the best of me, Bill. So it was the summer of 1992, and I'm playing for the Los Angeles Kings. And whatever happened, I just don't know. But my brain was telling me over and over and over, and I'll get to our daughter, Caitlin, because she's a big part of this story, about why I'm sharing my story. That loop, she taught me about the loop in the brain and how it just went over and over and over. And I didn't know how to break that loop. I didn't know about the loop, but my brain just kept telling me, you can't do this any longer. You're not good enough. It's going to come to an end. And which would be, in a sense, kind of rational thoughts, because an NHL player's career typically is only about 3 or 4 years. And I think I was entering my 10th year. So you would have those doubts at times, but my thoughts became completely irrational, and they just got the best of me. But I didn't know what that was going on. I didn't know I didn't know the mental state I was in. I just thought that was part of life until our daughter Caitlin, in around 2004, started really having all these what we called quirky little habits, but they weren't. They were much more than that. And she ended up needing to get help. We went to a psychologist, Dr. Kelly Mraz in Calgary, and frankly, he saved her life. So,
wow.
And then she battled for years and years and years. She was about 12 years old when she was diagnosed with OCD and anxiety. And I believe she was about 4 years after that. These are her words, not mine, Bill. She said, I'm starting to have more good days than bad. And so that was the sign of, she's starting to really understand how to sort of manage her thoughts and, deal with these thoughts daily. She has thoughts about disease and dying every single day, still to this day, but she has the tools to help her. But when she came out with her story, she came out nationally in 2013, which was really cool. I mean, the National Post and the Canadian press both did big stories on her and her battle and her strength and all that. Is really heartwarming, Bill, because I was afraid. I got to tell you, my friend, when the story was going to break, like I said, in April of 2013, I was away, but we had a great chat on the phone. And I said, I forewarned her, or actually I asked her, the night before. I said, do you really want to do this? Because Bill, I was so afraid of social media and all the haters and the bashers.
Oh,
Right. And so I got to tell you, it was so heartwarming to know she's not had any bashers or haters. She's only been surrounded by love. So, and then we started chatting as a family, and it was kind of like making fun of Dad, you know, my habits, and I've not been clinically diagnosed yet, but I'm actually searching out help right now because of my OCD, and my brain gets the best of me, and it certainly did this year. I had an ugly year, and you know, it can happen to anybody at any time at any age.
Wow. Thank you for sharing that story. And Caitlin's how old now?
She's 29.
29. Wow. Now tell me if I'm not being too personal, when you say the loop that you experienced, so the loop, the tape that would play over and over and over that, you know, you weren't worthy or whatever. Can you share a little more of that?
Yeah, well, mine was at that time, and I'm going to share one from this year. It was just that you're not good enough. You can't keep, this was actually really important. You can't keep doing this at this same level anymore. You just can't. And my brain was insistent upon doing that over and over and over. And so finally, I got off to a great start that year, Bill, but it was in late November when the thoughts became overpowering. We were playing one of those neutral site games. We're in Milwaukee, and I had a terrible night. Like, I became unglued, and I'm alone.
Oh, I'm so, I can't. My heart really goes out to you know, the video that your video that Dr. Shelley Spanner aired at the Big Ball down at Hotel Arts. There was not a dry eye in the room after that video played, and I just want to say thank you for that. Was really, really, really powerful, and I believe it won an award or was up for an award or something. But it was phenomenal. Thank you,
Bill. I got to tell you, there's an interesting story behind that video. So, Kirsty McClellan Day sent an interview at their production studio, Pyramid Productions, with her husband Larry Day, and so that was October of last year. And I personally thought I was going there to do an interview about Caitlin, and I had no idea I was going to be sharing my story. And so that's why I became very emotional. Larry did an amazing job, but there was more to that story. And that's why I think not only did I really come clean about what I was feeling, but something was really brewing in my head right in around that time. And I had this past hockey season, Bill, I've had some of the same familiar thoughts that I had back in 92, 93, that I'm not good enough. I can't do Hockey Night in Canada anymore. And so before every show, I would have to try and convince myself I'm good enough to go back on air. Can you imagine that? 21 or 22 years in broadcasting, and I faced the same challenges this year, and I'm searching out help. I got to get healthy again to go back on the air before the next hockey season, because I don't know what happened, but it was very similar to back many, many years ago, where my brain just got the best of me and completely irrational thoughts. And I had to work hard to get on air this year. Oh,
wow. I'm so sorry to hear that, because, you know, you've got a bazillion fans, and, you know, everyone else knows you're good enough. Everyone else knows you're great, but it's just too bad that you don't know it yourself sometimes. So I can absolutely relate. So what advice would you have for anyone, be they male or female, say men, who are struggling with their mental health right now? What would your advice be?
Please share. Go talk to
share.
Please share. I told my wife, it wasn't a very emotional situation, because I knew I needed help. So a few months ago, I told my wife, like, I am battling again, and I'm gonna try and get some help, and I'm in that process right now. But you can't do it alone. It's too hard. I mean, it just beats you up, and you need to express yourself. By the way, Bill, it's not as hard as you'd think to tell somebody, because, you know, it feels good to tell somebody. Then you feel like you're being supported. But also, I always say, watch out for others also. So if you notice somebody, they're in a situation which they seem different, and reach out, ask them some questions. And I have an example from early in the pandemic, Bill. So it was the first weekend, I believe it would have been around March 12th or 14th. It was right in around that time when it was the first major weekend when we were starting to hear all the bad things about the pandemic. And I remember my wife, she was glued to the TV the entire weekend, in particular on the Sunday afternoon, and she was acting quite different. She's flipping channels, and man alive, I had not seen her behave like that, because she's pretty normally chill. And all of a sudden, the next day, she wakes up about 5:15 in the morning, and she had such great pain in her chest. She thought she was having a heart attack. So we ended up that day going to the hospital. Luckily for her, everything checked out fine, but she stressed herself out so much that she ended up getting shingles just from the stress.
No.
And I wish I would have said something the afternoon before. I wish I would have said, honey, are you okay? Because her behaviors were different. And we could have had a nice chat and maybe turned the TV off. And so I think all of us are under great stress, and it really affects us. And you've got to chat with people. Like the last weekend of the NHL playoffs, I was in Toronto, and I did the same thing to myself, Bill. So we had back-to-back games on a Friday and a Saturday. And normally I like to go for a walk on a day like that and clear my head. And I didn't. And I started watching the news all Friday afternoon, all Saturday afternoon. And Saturday night, I got to the studio after 2 days of watching the pandemic and the rising numbers in Ontario and across the country. I put myself in a bad place. I even told a couple of my bosses that I don't know if I can do this anymore, because I just needed to get home. My brain was working overtime, filling my thoughts or my head with terrible thoughts, and it can happen to anybody. Like, I'm sure there are many people out there, men and women, children, teenagers, that have had their moments during this pandemic, and it's okay to chat about it. It clearly, it's perfectly fine to chat about. You're normal. I mean, you saw, I'm sure many people saw Stephen Colbert last night break down with the song from Dolly Parton. It happens, right?
Wow. Thank you for that advice, because especially since COVID, it's the incidence of depression is just skyrocketing, and I think it's just going to get worse as we go through the second wave or the third wave. So it is a struggle to stay positive and think that the future's not all as bleak as it's not going to be. We'll get through this together. And thank you for I just can't thank you enough for sharing your story and for doing all you do. It means a lot. It means a lot to so many. So bless your soul, my friend. And thank you for taking time to be with us. Okay.
You're the best, Bill. Thanks. Keep up the great work. This is a beautiful program that you guys are doing. I love it. Thank you.
Well, I'm trying. My pleasure. Take care. All the best.
Okay. Thanks.
Thank you for streaming the local dive, which is supporting Calgary Prostate Cancer Center. Today's event kicks off the annual Keep It in Calgary campaign, where every donation supports men's health initiatives right here in the city. So you can visit keepitincalgary.ca. So that's keepitincalgary.ca to join the fight against prostate cancer. Big thank you to Legend 7 Brewing for brewing up a special batch to acknowledge the 1 in 7 men who will be diagnosed with prostate cancer. During November, they're going to be making a 7% 77 IBU pale ale with proceeds supporting the Calgary Prostate Cancer Center. So thank you, big thank you, huge thank you to Legend 7 Brewing. Speaking of local, we're now joined by Calgary's very own excellence of execution, the best there is, the best there was, the best there ever will be, Bret the Hitman Hart. Bret, of course, we know you from your wrestling days in the WWE and Stampede Wrestling, but one of your biggest fights happened back in 2015 when you were diagnosed with prostate cancer. So what was it like to hear the words, "You have cancer"? Can Bret hear us? I don't think Bret can hear us right now. So, but Bret Hart is joining us. We're going to get his audio fixed right away. And Bret is joining us, of course. Back in 2015, Bret found out that he was battling cancer, and it was devastating, I'm sure. And he's going to be talking about that in a couple of seconds here. Do we have audio yet? Okay, while we're getting.
Hey Calgary, this is Bret the Hitman Hart. I was born and raised right here in this city, and after I got diagnosed, I was treated at Calgary's Prostate Cancer Center. Calgary's my hometown, and I will fight for it. If this is your city, time to get behind it this November. Keep It In Calgary. Funds raised go directly to Calgary's Prostate Cancer Center. Support them so they can support you.
keepitin.calgary.ca, the website to check out today. Bret, do we have you for audio right now?
Can you hear me?
Yeah, we've got you loud and clear, my friend.
Okay.
Welcome. Thank you for joining us. So we were talking about back in 2015 when you found out that you were going to be getting ready for one of the biggest fights of your year, of your career, of your life, actually, and that was when you were diagnosed with prostate cancer. What was it like to hear the words, "You have cancer"?
Yeah, they were sobering to say the least, but they were really frightening, scary. It really put fear right through my whole body, like everywhere. I immediately feared the worst. I think it's got to be one of the worst things you can hear someone say to you. And it's kind of like, am I really here? Am I really hearing this? Fear struck my whole body. Like I didn't know what to do. At the same time, I was very calm and very, I can say that I was prepared for it. I don't know how to explain it, but because I got checked and sort of had known for numerous years that my PSA level was slowly climbing and getting higher and higher. And I always got checked every year, which a lot of people don't, but it's so important to get checked. I had been sort of forewarned that, that maybe in another year or two, I might be over the line and I'd have to consider surgery and that kind of stuff. So I was part of me was kind of prepared for it. But again, when you hear those words, yeah, you've got cancer. I just my whole heart sunk in my chest, and I felt sort of a fear go through my whole body. And I don't know that it's any different for anyone else. I'm sure when anyone else hears those words, it's very sobering and very, you have a fear that goes through you that is indescribable.
One of the big things we're talking about today, Bret, is overcoming adversity and hardship. And we all know you've never stepped back down from a fight. So what is a time? Can you tell us about a time where you overcame all of the odds?
Well, that would be one. My stroke was another. When I suffered a stroke in 2002, in a lot of ways that was even more frightening and debilitating. But I don't know if I understood that so much at the time. When I suffered my stroke, that was also an equally devastating moment in my life where there was a time after about 2 or 3 weeks that I thought, I'm going to forever spend the rest of my life in a wheelchair, and I'm going to be this way forever. And you find yourself praying a lot, and you find yourself searching for any kind of solution to sort of how do you spring back? How do you get back? How do you get this back? How do you and I have to say that I put all my faith, same with the prostate issues. I put all my faith in the experts and the doctors and the people the nurses and all the people that were the physio people, and you put your faith in people that know better, and they're going to guide you through this. And in both cases, I can say I was very happy with all the people that sort of worked to put Humpty Dumpty back together again when I had my stroke, and at the same time when I went through my issues with prostate cancer. I thought that the doctors and everyone at the Calgary Prostate Center did such a great job of helping me through that. I mean, I'm forever indebted to some of the help that I got from professionals.
So you've talked about some of the struggles that you went over the last few years. What advice would you have for people who are struggling in their lives to get by right now?
Well, you have to stay positive, and you have to sometimes you have to just keep pushing. You have to you have to want it. You know, I can't express how important it is to put your faith and the trust into the doctors that know how to help you. And you know, like when I had my stroke, you know, I remember going, I'm not going to get better unless I listen to these physio people that are going to help me with my speech. I mean, I had a full-on stroke. I mean, some people think when they see me today that I had a minor stroke or a mini stroke, or, you know, I didn't have a mini stroke. I had a full-on stroke. Like, I lost everything in my whole body, right down the middle of from the one half of my body was basically paralyzed. And it was a terrifying thing. And, you know, the little progress that I made, I mean, it was sometimes like about a hair a day kind of thing. Like, it was such a small amount of progress that it was discouraging. But, you know, if you add up all those little tiny amounts of progress over a period of 2 or 3 weeks, it's like, well, I gained like an inch of progress. And it's like, I can remember being discouraged by that. But after a few months, the 1 inch became 3 inches, became 5 inches, here I am walking out of the room now, and I'm out of my wheelchair, and I'm working on this, and I'm trying hard. There's a lot of little victories that added up into a big victory. And sometimes you just got to put your faith in the experts and shut up and listen, you know, and follow what they tell you to do, and do it to the best of your ability. And God willing, you'll have a good recovery.
You mentioned a lot of little victories, and a big part of that, I think, is probably having a great support team. So who are the people that you leaned on when you needed that help and support?
Well, I can say for me, Dr. Hyman, who was my was the surgeon for my prostate cancer. He had such a great approach and was so straightforward, direct with me. He just made me understand what I was dealing with and what I needed to do and what they were going to do and how things would go. And he was all I can say is his bedside manner was just what I needed. I need someone that was going to be frank and honest and at the same time positive. And I always felt that he was just the perfect guy, had just the right sort of mindset to keep me positive and optimistic, and at the same time, you know, less fearful. And he helped me stay strong. And you know, I couldn't ask for a better doctor. And even when I was in the hospital and I went through the surgery, you know, the nurses and the people in that hospital that did so much for me, they were so good. Like I just was very proud of the system. That's like I thought that they did an awesome job. And going back to my stroke, you know, that I had in 2002, I thought the stroke ward at the Foothills Hospital was incredible. It's such a unappreciated how much of a great job they do there. And I learned that through my experience there that they're one of the finest stroke wards in the country. And I mean, I've always been indebted to them. You know, the little pep talks and the things that they said to me and how they encouraged me. I've never forgot it. It's you in those kind of situations. Again, you got to put your faith in people that know what they're talking about, that have dealt with this day in and day out with all kinds of people already before you walk in the door. They know how you're feeling. They know what your fears are, and they're going to help you through that. And I was really lucky. I had great care, and it's a testimony to the Canadian healthcare system. What a great, you know, luxury we have in this country. And sometimes you look south of the border and how they ridicule Canada for the socialist, you know, the healthcare system we have up here. I don't understand that. I mean, it's one of the greatest things in the world and Canadians are so lucky to have it. And I'm really proud of that.
So, all right. So, Bret, it looks like you mentioned having that support and people who look out for you and cheer you up. We've actually got a close personal friend of yours that's joining us today, Hrudey. who's been a part of many labor forces around the country, from swamping to almost foreman. He's currently working towards his welding ticket. And recently, Terry, is this true? You recently leased a truck that has tons of power and torque?
Yeah, that's right. Like, I got lucky enough to get a good deal on a truck, so I'm riding high. I'm not gonna lie. Like, it's my first sort of lease, so I'm feeling pretty good.
Awesome. So I hear you have some questions for Bret.
I totally do.
I can't
like,
hear anybody.
Oh, you can't hear me?
I can only hear you.
Oh,
I can't hear Terry.
Can anyone hear me? Like, thumbs up, buddy. Can you hear me?
I can hear you. Bret doesn't hear you, though, it sounds like.
Well, maybe you can relay a message for him. Like, I've been trying to reach him on that cell phone he gave me, and I don't know if he didn't get the messages or not, but I've been calling him a lot.
Bret, Terry says that your phone calls haven't been going through.
My phone calls haven't been going through.
His phone calls to you haven't been going through.
He gave me a special number, and I've been calling.
I think that must just be a malfunction at the junction somewhere.
So can we get it so I can talk to Bret? Like,
I always welcome hearing from Terry. I know he's a very proud Canadian.
Yeah,
we have a lot in common, me and Terry.
So are you saying I have to say everything through, I'm sorry, I didn't even get your name. I know you're the host, but this is going to be really strange.
Terry, it's Fuzzy.
Fuzzy. Oh, now I hear you, but now I seen you. So sorry, Fuzzy. I apologize.
That's all right, bud.
But you got to explain to Bret, like, this is a weird, like, triangle, because he can't hear me, and how am I supposed to talk to Bret? Is this on purpose?
Well, you know what? Much the same way that your messages haven't been going through to Bret, I believe potentially this conversation may be blocked as well. So I can act as that in-between, the go-between right now. So anything you want to ask Bret, I got you.
I'm going to go to a different microphone. Tell me, maybe Bret can hear me now, like... Is that a bit better? Like, I don't know.
Can you hear Terry now?
Hey, Bret, it's Terry.
I can hear you, but no Terry.
Still no Terry. Okay.
Well, I've been trying to talk to Bret for a while. Like, I was going to say, like, I'm really grateful that you've had some Terrys on this thing, because there's quite a few Brets. So I'm glad.
There have been a few Brets, yeah. So we're glad that we can get a Terry on here.
Yeah, and, I'm not going to lie. Like, they said, can you maybe help out a little, come on this thing? And I'm like, for sure, like, I've had a little bit of cancer in my life, like through my buddy Dean there. He had cancer and we kind of got her dealt with. So, I'm trying to listen a bit more to this stuff, but I'm a little embarrassed to say, I'm not going to lie. Like, I don't actually even really know what my prostate does or like anything about it, because I just don't know. And I'm kind of embarrassed, but I've been listening to people to say, just talk and say it. So I don't really know what it does.
Well, and this is why it's important to go and get your checkup and see your doctor on a regular basis. And Bret, you can talk to you've talked about the importance of getting that early detection and getting checked out.
Yeah, I'm a guy that's a firm believer, and I can't stress how important it is to get checked, especially when you get to be over 40. You need to get checked every year, and it's really not a very complicated thing. It's a very simple thing. It's a blood test, and that can even be, there's other ways to do it, but it's so important to get checked, and it'll give you peace of mind. Any men out there that are even wondering about it, go in and get checked. It's could save your life, for one thing. And I always have to remind people, my oldest brother Smith was a guy that never got checked, never really worried about it, never had any symptoms. And one day, right around the time I got diagnosed, he got diagnosed at the same time, but his whole body was, the cancer had spread, and it was, ultimately a death sentence for him. And I remember in the hospital when I visited my brother Smith in his last 3 or 4 months of his life, I remember he would constantly look at me and say, I wish I'd got checked. And it's so important. I can't say it in a more serious way how important that is. You live in a country with healthcare, and there's nobody in this country that can't get a checkup, and it's just critical. And it's not something to be overlooked. Don't be one of those guys that, like my brother Smith, where it's too late. And it's just a really important thing, especially for men. There's a strong percentage. It's one of the highest percentages for cancer for men in this country and even around the world, and it's not anything to mess around with, and it's really simple. And the alternative, and the things they can do surgery wise, and is actually a very like how I am today in my life. I'm quite happy with my life, and I live in pretty much a normal life and do everything that I ever did before. And it's not as scary as it maybe it was a few years ago. And I just think it's so important to stress to so many men. I've met so many friends and different people over the years that never get checked and are almost proud of the fact that I don't have to get checked. And those same people now get checked. And I try to drive that message home to anybody that I talk to about that.
Yeah, well, you're talking right to me. He said, like, basically I'm the guy he's talking to, like the sort of the dummy who's like, don't affect me, like kind of afraid. But, those words that Bret just said, they kind of went right to my ticker there. Like, I'm gonna go get her checked out right away. Like, I've been kind of dumb about it, but, like, should I go do it? Like, where obviously I just go see my doctor. I ain't seen a doctor in a few years. Like, I'm one of them guys. So, I guess I just got to do it, find a doctor. Hopefully I don't have to go to BC, because apparently the doctors are like, leaving. So anyway, I'm going to try to find one.
Yeah, we've got amazing doctors, amazing healthcare here in this province. Big thank you to the Calgary Prostate Cancer Center, doing so many great things in this city. And I'd like to take time to thank you both for joining us today. Bret, Terry, thank you so much for taking the time out of your day to join us here for Keep It in Calgary.
Right on. Thanks a lot. Yeah, tell Bret to call me. I'm going to leave some more messages.
Yeah, I didn't get to hear you.
Yeah, I'll call you. Okay. Woo! See you, Bret.
See you guys.
Bye.
Bye.
Bill, we're throwing it back over to you right now.
Okay, well, I'm afraid to ask Terry. It looked like he was really in a smoke-filled environment, or was I just imagining that? We'll just leave that where it belongs. So I just want to thank everyone for tuning into the local dive, and we're continuing our discussion on overcoming adversity and hardship as we work to support the Calgary Prostate Cancer Center's Keep It in Calgary campaign. It's not too late to support, so please go online, keepitincalgary.ca, and donate. Also, thank you to our partners today, Agate Laboratories, Nutrien, and Post Media, for your support. And we're going to take a quick 30-second break for a message from our partner, Nutrien. That was cool. Here we are back. Calgary's Prostate Cancer Center's Keep It in Calgary campaign is all about living local and giving local. No one embodies that more than our next guest, Megan. Now, how do I pronounce your last name, my dear?
You ask me this every time, Bill. It's Szanik. Just forget about the S and it works.
Well, I was going to say like Daryl Zanuck. But I thought,
exactly.
Heaven forbid I get it wrong, because I've never lived down the fact that I took your picture one time and it was so out of focus, and I just was, and you never let me forget it either, but we had a good no. I've only been doing it for 30 years, but I'm glad you forgave me. So Megan is the visionary and creator of the SB Experience. It's a stylist-driven clothing and shoe store for men and women in Inglewood. And Megan's career spans more than 20 years. You must have started as a baby. Across all realms of the fashion industry, standing at the helm of a multi-million-dollar independently owned business. Wow. Megan and the stylish SB team have to date raised more than $330,000 for charitable causes close to their hearts, including our very own Calgary Prostate Cancer Center. So welcome, Megan.
Thank you so much. To follow Bret Hart and such an inspiring person is kind of a little tough, because we're talking about overcoming adversity and hardship, and we've all had so much in different ways. Mine, luckily, has not been health. You guys know me for the prostate cancer because of our Naked SB events that we've put on for years, and we've always been so happy and proud to be able to do that. And it's very difficult this year to not get the chance to put all those guys outside in underwear, because it is my favorite day of the year. Bill, I just don't know how to tell you. And it is the most fun that we have. So we cannot wait to get back to it. And, we're at a point now where we're being asked to kind of pivot. And this word pivot really bothers me because I don't want to pivot who I am as a business. I don't want to pivot what I do. My pillars of service and experience, expertise and community has been really, really big. So I don't want to pivot away from that. But what I've had to do is kind of overcome to this adversity of my business dropping in half within those 2 months, being closed for 2 months, of course. And then people keep coming in going, well, how you doing, Meg? And really, it's only at 50% for retail. And we're really relying on, the governmental subsidies and things like that are coming in. And there's two ways to look at that. We can look at it as, oh, cry, cry, cry. I have to use some money from the government. But the way that I'm looking at it as, what an opportunity to finally get that e-com done, to be having someone else pay for it. But it's been really interesting for me because I'm kind of looking at what qualities that I have that makes it so that I can be resilient, so that I can get up, so that I can keep fighting for this local business that I love, for this community that I love, so that I can keep giving back and doing the things that are really within my wheelhouse and where I can contribute. And I look at a couple of qualities that I have, and the biggest one is hope. I hope it's going to be better. I really have this deep sense that we can get through this. And I believe that we can get through this. And I think that that's something that really, really stands out. We need to have that deep-seated belief that things will get better. But the big thing for me is action. I'm an action person. When my dad got diagnosed with prostate cancer in 2009, I immediately started Naked SB by and Bret Wilson just showed up in his underwear, and the first 30 guys showed up at the store, in my little store that I had down the street when I started. And we raised, $7,000 that first year. And it was just like, wow, this is actually a thing. We can actually do that. And getting in action right now is really, really important. And it's hard. We had Hrudey talking about his wife sitting there like glued to the TV and so anxious with what she was seeing and unable to take action. And I think that that's one of the things that we as entrepreneurs and we as Calgarians really need to do. We need to take action for ourselves and keep moving. And yes, things are changing every 5 minutes and we don't know what program and what's happening, but we need to start moving towards something. And when you do that, the answers do appear. And that is what's been really interesting about my journey so far. I was very resistant to the internet and to online because Bill, how can I tell you how great your ass looks if I cannot see it? How can I tell you that is not how can I tell you that is not an appropriate style for you when I'm not in front of you and I'm asking you to pick from this photo, this photo, this photo. That's just not really who I am. And what happened was experimenting with some of this virtual stuff, some of these Zoom calls, realizing I could not walk around SB with a computer and kind of pointed at things. I ran into something called video selling. And this is really cool because I'm able to take a video, put it on YouTube, and then as I hold up the garment, you're able to collect to my e-com site and put it in your basket right away. But what the nice thing is, I'm able to tell you, Bill, this is how it feels. You need to buy this one size bigger because it's a little small fit, or all of those kind of things. I can now talk directly to my client. And so we tested it. And our first one wasn't amazing, but I had hope and I had belief that this was going to happen. And we had some good results that first day. And I went, wow. And now we're making more and more shopping videos and we're trying to connect with our clients in a different way because I refuse to pivot from who I am. I'll pivot my method. I'll pivot my process. Okay. But I will not pivot who we are as a business and what we want to accomplish. And we want to make you feel amazing in your clothes. And I want to make you feel something. And when we started doing these videos, even these little Instagram videos, I always thought that I wasn't the expert. I'm just a local girl that puts on local charities and does local stuff. And my clients want to hear from me and they want to hear from my stylist and they want to know how to wear short pants and what they should be doing and what they should be wearing for Zoom calls. And people are coming in and saying, oh my God, I saw your video and I'm so glad. And I really want you to tell me about this or this sweater. So we've been able to kind of pivot in how we're delivering our service and how we're getting our message out there.
Yeah. Now, how do you, when you're doing this, when you're doing the online, is it a one-on-one consultation with one of your clients and saying, well, here's this from the side, or do you do it as
We've done both. We find the virtual is a bit difficult because it's hard to get the professional camera, which is really an iPhone and some earbuds. Let's be realistic. You guys have been doing the news now for months, virtual, and that's really what it is. But what we chose to do was instead pre-make a video. So I'm making a video for you, Bill, my customer. I send you the YouTube link, and then you're able to watch me talking to you, explaining this will go back with the pants that you already have. These are some new jeans that I want you to try, and getting that selling experience, and that experience of the stylist being the one that knows what you should be wearing. You know, we are the experts in fashion and what's going to work for you and your body. So we've been able to do that. So we started off with some general to certain customer groups, like Iris at Lekwe, one of our Canadian designers. I've been able to use their inventory instead of my inventory, which has been amazing, because that's one of the real stop gaps for online for a boutique. I only have 6 of something. So by the time that it actually gets online, I only have 2 left. So I've been able to really get innovative using other people's inventory, selling products and getting videos and delivering them directly to my clients, saying, here you go, Bill, here you go, Sally, here's what you need. And then having people react to it in a different way and getting that service. Because what we discovered, Bill, is they want to talk to us, they want to see us, but they just might not be able to where they are in COVID right now to get down to the store.
Smart. And you found it hugely successful?
Well, my first day, my Iris video was $3,000 of extra sales that I didn't have. So for me, that was a success. And now this next one's going to go out this week. And if we can throw on another 3,000 and another 3,000, I've got to get back over $1 million in sales. Okay. And that I've lost. And we've got to find a new way to do that. And the other interesting thing is I'm the girl that says leggings are not pants. Okay. I don't sell sweatpants because I'm like, no, Bill, that's for your house. That is not for out.
Yeah.
And now we've had to kind of diversify and be okay with selling those things, because I have the perfect bathrobe. So you know what I'm doing? I'm making it for you guys. I'm using new suppliers that I've met in Brazil and other places and here in Canada to make those perfect items that I can sell online, easy for e-com, that I know is really going to work for my client, because I know I've got great taste and that's what they're asking for right now. So I'm able to do this in a little bit of a different way and kind of expand my product offering to things that I wouldn't normally do, but I'm still within that realm of, hey, here's the very best that I can give you. Made in Canada, feels amazing, because they want to know, but they want to know what I'm wearing at home too. I just wasn't selling it before. So now we're really starting to.
Oh, that's very, very cool. Good for you. That's really, and I like that you say the word pivot, but describes kind of what we have to do. The only other word that I really think is overused is unprecedented. If I hear that word one more time, I'm going to scream. Anyhow, why has your business chosen to give back to the community and charitable causes?
For me, you've got to keep your money local. When my dad, went to the Prostate Cancer Center and he got all sorted out, thank God. And it's local. When my brother goes to Special Olympics, that money is local. And I think what ends up happening is we don't realize it. We see these massive campaigns in Movember, and I hate to hate on Movember. But the reality is it's a cool campaign, but that money does not come to Calgary. And our men raise so much money for leaving the country. And leaving our province and leaving our city. And I think that it's really important, because the people that take care of our men are the Calgary Prostate Cancer Center. So I've always kept all of my giving local. We've recently, I know there's going to be some promo you guys are going to put out. So we did, Women's Emergency Shelter has been one that I started with last year, doing some like live auctioning in their gala. Well, of course, the gala didn't happen this year. So I pivoted my method. We went online. And we raised $7,500 for them in about 3 days by auctioning off an online item, which was a shopping party, COVID friendly, for 10 people, where everybody gets a gift card to spend in the store. And also they get wine and cheese. And that was really awesome. So we actually have one of those up for the Prostate Cancer Center right now. I know the link will be on your site. So we would love to start getting some being able to auction all of that forward. I will repost it on Instagram as well too. So it's right at the top of the feed, because things do get buried, as you know, with how we are in social media. But we really need to keep our money local. So whether it's the Women's Shelter or the Prostate Cancer Center or the Special Olympics, which I support for my brother, I want to make sure that money goes where the people that are in my community that are supporting my store get to use it.
Oh, that's wonderful. Now, what advice then would you give to other businesses, specifically maybe retail, who haven't yet realized the potential of becoming involved in their community, or the importance of same? What advice would you give to them?
Every retailer needs to remember who is shopping in their store, and that is your locals. For example, we get lots of requests from people walking by, like, I have a silent auction, I have this. The first thing that I do is I check, is that person a customer of mine? And if they are, it's almost an automatic give, because those things pay back in spades. And what we have to realize is that we want to keep doing these good deeds. I would encourage all other retailers to get involved in their community however they can. They think that it's just something little and they can't give. And yes, I'll do an event and I'll raise $75,000, but I also put 100 guys in the street and made a big fool. I did all of those things. And some people just can't see, I can't do what Megan does. It's too big, because it is massive undertaking. But a small event, a live auction item for a great charity that you want, supporting a customer and something that they're doing, always making sure that I subscribe to what other people are doing. It's so important. And I would encourage all retailers to do it. Right now, people are shopping local and they're making a very concerted effort to do that. They know they go to Walmart, maybe $30 stays in our community. They come to SB, they go down the street, $68 to $70 stays in our community. And this is, these are facts that we're hearing in all the studies that have been done. So more money stays in our community. Let's keep the money in the community. Has never been a greater time. And you don't have to put on a massive event like I do and go all crazy. You can do something small and you can be very impactful. And when you give, you receive. There is this energy flow that we forget about with charity and with what we're doing. And it's very, very important that we continue to remember that flow. If we just sit and we hold on to everything, nothing will ever come. And some of the very best moments that I've had in my business have been when I'm giving. That's when I feel the biggest and the strongest.
Well, it makes you feel really, really good to help those who maybe are not as lucky as you and I.
Yeah,
it feels good, doesn't it? It just fees good, I think.
Yeah, it really, really does. And we need more good feeling. How do you get through the pandemic? What's the answer? You gotta focus on the positive. And it's a little bit Disney, but it's reality. Every small thing that we focus on the positive will bring us more of that. And we're going to attract more of that coming in. So I would just encourage everybody to do that. And when you give a little bit, you're going to get back. It's just the way that the universe works with energy and with money and with everything.
Isn't that the truth? Well, now listen to that. I want to share this with our I want to make sure I get it right, my dear. It is. So Megan has, we're thrilled to announce that Megan has graciously started an auction, and it is called an auction of whiskey and wine clothing experience.
Yes.
And I encourage you all to go to her website to bid on this incredible experience to raise funds for the Prostate Cancer Center. Yes. The link is below to bid. And if you want to discover SB Experience's newest shopping video, be sure to join their email list and follow SB on social media. Like it, love it, just like Megan. And if you have, go and check out the boutique in Inglewood for affordable, fabulous designer shoes and clothing.
Absolutely. We're 7,000 square feet. You can socially distance really, really easily. I've got my mom sewing masks. She's got the coolest stuff. So come check it out.
Thank you so much for taking the time today, and continued success. And you're an inspiration to us all. So take care. And I look forward to seeing you out and about at some point.
Sounds good. At our next event, whenever we can have it.
Yeah, I agree. Okay, Megan, thanks again.
Thanks so much, Bill.
Bye for now. So our next guest is a creative, best-dressed warrior who champions the teachings of the world. Are you intrigued? His passion in food, fashion, and education has brought him great success in inspiring his clients to achieve their highest potential. We are delighted and honored to have Domingo Lumanog here today at the local dive. Welcome. There you are.
Hi, Bill. How are you?
I'm really well. How are you?
It's always a pleasure to see you.
That's always a pleasure to see you. It's always fun to see you out and about at events. Don't we have a hoot?
Yes, all the time.
Never any dead air. So you know what, my friend, I got to tell you, after reading your biography, I shed a few tears. So I got to admit, it was very heartfelt. Really touched. It really touched my soul. So I'm so excited to have you here with us today. And I think your story of overcoming adversity will definitely resonate with everyone who is tuning in today. Will you tell us a little bit about yourself, your background, and some of the hardships you've overcome to get you where you are today?
Absolutely. And first of all, thank you so much for inviting me to share what I have to share with you, with everyone who's tuning in. Adversity is really something that I think all of us kind of experience, but I wanted to see if I can share. Bill, I have a presentation just to kind of keep me on track, because I like to talk. So I'm not sure if I can, if you guys can see that. Can you see?
No.
Oh, there we go. Can you see this?
Yep. Yeah. Living as a AAA student.
So I wanted to share with everyone my approach and how my life story, and just perfect timing to just really kind of get started with living as a AAA student and what that really means for me. So acceptance and acknowledgement of adversities are a AAA approach in continuing to live my life to the fullest. So you know what, Bill? Growing up, I've always, in the Philippines, I was always different. You know, I was too dark to be Asian, too light to be African American, too feminine to be a boy, and obviously have boy parts to be a girl. So when I was in high school, I was dubbed fashionably different, for I was wearing frocks when I can, and thanks to the nuns, the priests, the missionaries for the uniforms required to have my attendance accounted for in my school years. Coming from a not so traditional family, I took a big inspiration from my mother, who I thought was different, because she is the only African American in her class growing up like me. When I'm not studying at the library, I helped coordinate the sponsorship, aka beauty pageants in the school, and spearheaded forest cleaning drives. And yes, with my clutch, my tribe, and of course, a big smile. At that time, everything was swell. In 2005, that all changed when I and my family immigrated to Canada. Everything was new, everything was exciting. I was 21 when I moved, yet I left 21 years of foundation, friends, anchors I thought I'd grow old with. So here I am, a stranger in a strange land as an immigrant. I had to make a choice. Do I sit by my window as I watch the snow falling from outside, like what we're experiencing today, and wish I was somewhere warmer, like back home in the Philippines, or create a snowman out of a snow outside my new home? I chose the latter and adapted. My first job in Canada, Bill, was a housekeeper at an inn with an hour-and-a-half commute from my new home to get to work. This was November 11, 2005, 4 days after I landed from the tropics, days after I chose to build a snowman outside my new home.
Cool.
With my hand-me-down basic winter accessories, I waited for bus 29, you know, local, right? To pick me up, to take me to the train station so I could be transported to work. All day, I've asked myself, should I accept this, or do I follow one of my siblings who chose to go back to the tropics and never look back? As stubborn as I am, I chose to keep going. A year later, I found another job that felt a little bit more my style, but a few years later, that company ceased operations in Canada and dismissed all staff, including myself. I am back to square one and felt I needed to reinvent myself. So I digged into fashion, moved into a different city, and I thought I was back on track. The job failed me once more, and I left making another decision to go back to Calgary and declare bankruptcy. The year was 2015. I felt horrible. I felt like giving up. I did not see any value in living. There were even times when friends would drive to me so I can get out of bed with their help to see the sunshine. And finally, I chose once again and accept, after years of denying myself the truth, that I could be potentially bipolar like my mother. Sessions upon sessions of therapy and studying, struggling with a weight on my shoulders, it felt like sadness was never going away. Thankfully, the diagnosis came in and I was clinically depressed. The promise that a daily pill intake to rid of demons in my head, finally making attempts of ending my life anew. Stubborn, different, and a go-getter, I wanted to change. I was given a lifeline through science and wondered if there was a way to cure myself without it. A backpack and over 200 pounds of body weight at 5 feet and 2 inches, I took a plane and arrived in India and started my dedication of a practice and found yoga. I was still 200 pounds, mind you, when I came back and completed my yoga teacher training, but seriously felt lighter than ever. I realized the practice of being present and mindfulness can do a lot to the body and mind. I could have stopped at any time. I felt any adversities were over. I was free and happy. But alas, I still needed the pill. I still feel sad at times, and the voices of feeling not good enough, not worth enough still lingers. So I pushed myself, distracted. Tried drag performing, where I sing to tunes that made me happy to a crowd. But then again, I was too different, as the drag performances normally limit performances to lip syncing and not live singing. So I went on back to what I knew, personal shopping. Few months of being focused, I was the first person they awarded to fly to the store's flagship in New York City with top clients to host and to everyone's envy. And also got me my best dressed spread for Avenue magazine.
Oof.
But still, something was missing. Today, I manage a learning center, and as my boss would call it, a very responsible job. Not saying that my previous ones weren't. I finally realized wherever you are, adversities will follow. So it is up to me to tackle it head on and move along. I share with you today the very core that once made me question my purpose and my worth. Too dark to be Asian, too light to be African American, too feminine to be a boy, and yes, have boy parts to be a girl. But that's okay. I accept it because I am different.
Oh, wow.
Born with the adversities. Oh, thank you. So born with the adversities where I didn't fit in any boxes, Bill. I could have easily made myself empowered by victimhood, but I chose to rise above it all. I celebrated. In fact, when I was 200 pounds, remember that picture? I hired a photographer to take photos of me in my birthday suit just to celebrate it. I entered into territories where I pushed my boundaries and admitted when it's time to halt and move on. When we are first introduced to adversity, either laid on us or upon us, we have a choice. Do we accept where we are, acknowledge what we do, or do we deny ourselves with the time that we all know is borrowed? So my acceptance and acknowledgement of adversities catapults my respect for life and my approach to living life to the fullest as a AAA student. I hope this has been helpful, and I hope I can see myself again back to the right here. And hopefully everybody can kind of share a little bit of what I've experienced through and gone through.
Very powerful. Thank you enough. And unfortunately, very often those that are unique in the world are the ones that are most put upon. So, celebrate being unique and celebrate your oneness and your individualness, and you just keep rocking it because you're really cool and very inspiring. So thank you for taking the time to be with us today. We really appreciate it a lot.
Of course, Bill. And you know what? I appreciate people like you and people that have put this event together, because this is the reason why people like me exist and have the strength and the capacity to show up to the world, because I'm showing up to the world for me. But really, by the end of it, I'm showing for the world for us, because we have people like you that I'm very grateful for that, sets the platform for people like me.
Thank you. Take care. Look forward to seeing you out and about at some point in the future. Thanks
That's
again.
Great. Thanks, Bill.
Take care. Over to you, Fuzzy.
Next guest is Queen's Playground. She's a rehabilitation specialist by day and a fashion and lifestyle blogger by night. Her name is Chinenye, I hope I get this right, Otakpor? Otakpor. She serves a purpose to help people not only look good, but also feel good mentally and physically. Welcome, Chinenye. We are so happy to have you with us today.
It's so nice to see you. This is the first time I've ever actually seen your face, Fuzzy.
Really? Well, it's long overdue.
Yeah.
So, Chinenye, your influence in the fashion world is something to be admired, and your passion for mental health has made you a speaker that we were very eager to have on our live stream today. Here at Prostate Cancer Center, we, along with many others in the world, are doing our best to break the stigma around mental health and men's mental health, specifically in general, through our Women for Men's Health initiative and the Big Ball Gala. Can you tell our viewers today a little bit about you and what drew you to the fashion and blogging world?
Okay, so originally, many people have probably heard the story because I've said it time and time again, but originally my blog was born from my job in mental health. I originally started doing it because it became a coping mechanism for me to be able to handle everything that came with my job. I started working with kids at some point, and it affected me a lot mentally. So eventually being able to pour out all of my anxiety and everything I was dealing with into my blog really helped me find a good balance with my mental health. So that's how my blog was born. My family decided that they wanted to buy me a DSLR camera. So they did, and I was kind of like forced into it at some point where I was like, okay, now I have to do it because you guys have spent all this money on me. So now I will actually start it. And I just try to find different ways to incorporate both. And over the years, I figured out that my main goal now, working in mental health and also having a passion for fashion, is to try and make sure I can make people feel good mentally and physically, because both of them go hand in hand with each other. So yeah, that's
it's so important to have that creative outlet, right? I think that's something that a lot of time gets overlooked, and that for your own mental health and mental well-being is something that it helps you grow as a person, right?
It does. Finding a good balance and finding the right coping mechanisms is very important, because when you don't have a creative outlet or a way to just let all of that anxiety, let all of that sadness, depression, whatever it is you're dealing with, if you don't have a way to let it out, it continues to build, and it can affect your physical health, and most people don't realize that.
Chinenye, can you tell us some time about in your life where you overcame adversity?
I would say definitely moving from Nigeria. As most people know now, I'm not sure if they do, but there's a lot going on in Nigeria right now, with the End SARS movement, and just seeing that is a reminder that I have definitely overcome a lot of adversity in my life. I moved from there when I was around 11. And just seeing what's going on in the country right now is very sad. There's a lot of unwarranted killings of our youth. Basically, what's going on is equal to the police brutality that was going on with the BLM movement a couple months ago. It's basically the same thing going on in Nigeria right now. So that is one thing that I would say in my life has been a great example of overcoming adversity, because without the opportunity to come here and with my family, I would definitely be in that situation right now.
At what point did you realize that fashion and mental health, the two could go hand in hand? And how do you think that that fashion plays a role in people's mental health?
Fashion plays a huge role in people's mental health, because sometimes a lot of people can use it as a pick-me-up. You know, I've definitely gone through some really tough breakups, and the highlight of getting out of it was being able to finally dress up and go out with my friends. Or, you know, dressing up was a good indication that, okay, I can get over this. I can now conquer what the world has to offer. The first thing that people notice about us is the way we present ourselves, and fashion plays a role in that. So they do go hand in hand in that sense, because it's a physical representation of ourselves. So it is when you are not okay mentally, it can show physically with the way you present yourself, with the way you dress, and just hygiene, whatever it is. So that is one way that I try to help people understand that both are very, very important. Fashion can be used as a way to express yourself. And yeah, that's one of the ways.
Let's not forget, retail therapy is a very, very real thing, and there's nothing that makes you feel better than going to the mall and buying a new outfit, right? New fresh pair of kicks, a new blouse, whatever it is. Spending that money on some clothing, put a big smile on your face.
It's definitely, I know a lot of women are definitely gonna get mad at me, but it's a terrible coping mechanism. It's a terrible coping mechanism for mental health, but I understand that. But yeah, it definitely makes you feel good when you get a new fresh pair of kicks or whatever it is you're into. It's a great feeling. So
yeah, that was me. That's my thing. I'm all about getting a fresh pair of kicks. So maybe it's a handbag, whatever it is. But you're starting up a personal styling business that'll be launching soon. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
So that is something that I am still currently working on, because that is an extension of me wanting to make people feel good physically. So one thing I want to do is work on personal styling. I want to take on anyone that wants to just kind of reinvent themselves, reinvent their wardrobe, whatever the situation is. I want to take it on. It'll be a new challenge for me because, you know, I've been working more on the mental side of things, making people feel good mentally. So that is my new challenge now. Being a fashion blogger is nice, and I can always give people tips from my fashion blog, but to be able to do it physically and just see, you know, people's reaction from that, and that's my new goal. So that is something I'm currently working on, and people can always message me for more details about it.
Awesome. Chinenye, thank you so much for joining us today. It was so nice to talk with you. If people want to follow you, where can they find you?
Queen's Playground on Instagram. My website is www.queensplayground.com. Queen's Playground on all platforms, but the main platform people can contact me on is Instagram.
Thank you so much for your time today.
No problem. Thank you.
Have a great day.
You too.
All right. Bill, we're going to throw it back to you right now.
She's beautiful. Wow. So today's live stream, the local dive is actually kicking off Calgary Prostate Cancer Center's 4th annual Keep It in Calgary fundraising campaign, which is returning this November. So stay tuned for that. So the local dive would not be complete without chatting with our next guest, Jim Button. I've had the pleasure of knowing Jim for a long time. He's probably best known as the co-founder of Village Brewery, and he's well known for building community, using beer as a social connector. He's helped create a more tight-knit Calgary. Just one of the examples of one of his many fun things he's done is the nut raiser that we can maybe talk about later, a fundraising involving beer and bowls balls that I've always had the pleasure of being a judge for. So Jim is joining us today to talk about his journey with cancer and the positive mindset it requires. Jim, welcome. Thank you for joining us today, my friend.
It is so lovely to see you, my friend. You're looking sharp. I like it. We both have that little tiny silver stubble going on.
Do you? I think somebody told me I look like Moses.
Yeah. Well, you act like him quite often.
That's exactly it. So Jim, you chose to find the positive, and I mean, you've inspired so many, and you were suitably honored as a magnificent man, which you certainly are. But you've chosen to remain positive, battling your terminal diagnosis. So, what advice would you recommend to someone who's in a similar situation? How are you doing it? How are you doing it?
Well, you know, it's as many of the people that have been talking already. Positivity's a key ingredient to succeeding through this challenging time, but it's tough. You know, sometimes dealing with the chemo treatments and all the sideways foibles that you go through are quite arduous. And I don't believe there would be any way I would still be here today talking to you if I wasn't positive throughout this whole process. And it was it's honestly a conscious decision that you have to make. I remember when I was given oh, by the way, I can tell George I had surgery from Dr. Kozak as well. He took out my kidney back 5.5 years ago.
Oh, well, okay.
But about 4 years ago, I was given a diagnosis of stage 4 terminal renal cell carcinoma, and I was told I had a year to live, maybe 2. And so when you get that, you know, it's a bit of a shock. It's a shock to Tracy and I, and I think at that point you have to make a decision. You have to decide how you think you might want to handle it. I've seen many people do the opposite of me, where they allow the cancer to be them. They become their cancer. They see the negative in most things. Everything is against them, and life is really tough because they take that approach. Whereas if you have a positive approach, it's quite powerful, and you can see a wall and you quickly look at that wall and go, all right, how do I get over it or through it or around it to get to the other side? And I think if you keep that positive attitude going, it solves so much. Now, I'll guarantee you, without a doubt, I wouldn't be here today if I didn't have a positive attitude.
No kidding. Wow. And of course, with Tracy and your family's support, and you have an amazing social network, and lots of people who love you and are very, very fond of you. And I'm sure that it doesn't go unnoticed. I'm sure that's
Bill, you know, we're all this is a shared experience. You know, if there's three things I could say for somebody going through this, one would be as positive as you can. Number two, this is a shared experience. We're all in this together. And when you start, as many of the people have spoken already, when you speak about it and you share your vulnerability, you know, what Hrudey was saying was gorgeous. You know, when you start sharing, it becomes so much easier. And because you're not doing it alone, you're not facing this very challenging, trying time mentally and physically alone. And if you don't mind, I'll share a little experience as to why I became so positive and why I realized it's a shared experience. It's a pretty crazy story. You've heard me tell it once when I told it at the Magnificent Men, but it bears repeating. The day that I found out that I had 15 lesions on my lungs, that the cancer had come back and I had tumors in my lungs, I also got a text from my friend Avnish, and he said, "Jim, I hope you don't mind. I took you into a healing session." And remember, this is just a text, and nobody knew I was going to see the oncologist or that I'd had a scan. And he says, I took you into a healing session, and I wanted to let you know that and I hope you don't mind, but I want to let you know that I see dark clouds over your lungs, and it looks quite serious. You may want to get it checked. Now, when you get something like that, it is so mind-expanding and blowing that it's hard to understand. So I talked to Avnish, and I've talked to him quite a bit. But what it taught me in that exact moment, that very first day that I was diagnosed, that we are all connected and that we all share an energy and we are all can participate in each other's good times and bad times to get through things. And I've done so much in this community and loved doing it. And you can only imagine the energy that comes back, and it's beyond powerful. It's tenfold what you give out. So that would be the third thing is be purposeful. So those three things, Bill, get you through anything.
Wow. Well, that is just amazing that Avnish would send you that, and he had no idea. So he sends you the text that I see dark clouds over your lungs.
Just imagine how hard that would be even to send it. Like somebody could think, if I received it and I wasn't open to that type of thing, you're a nut job. You know, it's a pretty far-fetched statement to say out of the middle of nowhere. But I've subsequently sat down with them, and now I meditate. I took Qigong. I visualize. I can see. I go in and look at my body. I look at the tumor. I had a really weird experience once where the tumor was up like a mushroom, and I was doing bad things to it, like lightsabers and things. It was really bizarre. So I talked to Avnish and I said, "This is weird that for a guy that says I don't want to fight, I'm not in a fight, I'm not in a battle. I'm trying to be living with cancer, not dying from cancer." And I said, it feels weird to be doing visualization and tearing apart a tumor with lightsabers. And he said, "Well, what if because his spirit animal is a buffalo, and he knew mine was a unicorn." And he said, "Why don't you have some baby buffaloes tread along the tumor?" So I'm visualizing, I'm getting in there, and I see my tumor. My tumor is up like this big mushroom now. And again, I get all sorts of people are going to be all freaked out by this story, but it's the truth. And so I didn't have any way to get the buffalo up to the top of the tumor. And all of a sudden, these I crack myself up every time I tell the story. These unicorns come pick up my buffaloes, and they go up and they tread on the tumor. But that visualization, taking that time to understand your body and work with it in a positive manner and trying to take care of yourself is unparalleled.
Wow, that is so
and
cool.
Crazy.
No, it's not. Being aware of connectedness, that we really are all connected. If you just open yourself up to it, and I think unfortunately so many people are not and are closed to the possibility.
The saddest thing to watch, Bill, is to watch somebody go at something like this alone.
Oh, I can't imagine.
That is
Just
so
break my
sad.
heart.
Yeah.
You know what, my friend, you're what many would consider a great Calgarian. I think you're a phenomenal Calgarian. What do you think it is about Calgary that makes the city so good at coming together and overcoming adversity?
Gosh, I think, you know, if you want to go right back to the genesis of this town, it's almost like that frontier attitude where you're out in the ranch lands trying to survive. And, you know, I had this great story once from Ed McNally, who was a mentor of mine, who was the founder of Big Rock. And I said, so Ed, why are we so involved in community? Tell me the impact. I got it, but I needed to hear from him. And he said that, imagine, Jim, if I'm on my ranch and I'm leaving my ranch and I see Farmer Bob's combine sitting in the field. And I go, that's odd. He's just sitting there. And I come back in the evening and he's still sitting there. Well, I'm going to go check that combine out. And if I see Bob trapped underneath his combine, what's the first thing I'm going to do? Obviously, I'm going to get him help, but then our neighbors, and we're going to come and combine his land before we combine our land, because that's just what you do when you are a community-based location. And I think that attitude has transferred to Calgary, where we're in it together. And we have a lot of people with a lot of political differences. And I think at the bottom of it, they still love this city. They know this city stands for so much, and that it's so great, and that it could be even greater, and it will continue to get greater. And all the people that are doing things to make it great are the essence of a society. And I'm super proud to be living in Calgary, and I'm super proud to be forever trying to do things to make it a better place. But I think we got to get everybody doing it. The more the merrier. We're all connected.
Absolutely. And you know, we're all in it together is overused saying these days, but it's true. We're all in it together. So community.
And we're better together.
You bet we are.
I'm a better person because you're around, Bill.
Bless your soul. Well, back at you. So speaking of dear Ed McNally, rest his soul in heaven, because you were instrumental in way back when in your previous career,
right?
The Big Rock Eddies.
Oh,
was that
how fun were they?
Oh my
God!
You know, here's what I really don't like about the world having gone so politically correct is you couldn't get away with it. We couldn't get away with that these days. No. But they were really fun, right?
Oh, they were fun. Well, and people would get dressed. You know, I often say it was a shame that Big Rock stopped doing it, because where else can you get 2,000 people to buy tickets in 5 minutes for $100 to go watch your beer commercials and sample your beer? You know, like it was a gold mine. It was beautiful. And give all the money that was raised to the Women's Emergency Shelter.
It was phenomenal. How many years did it run? Was it a dozen years or more? 15?
Yeah, it was about 11 or 12 years. Yeah, I think I was involved in it 8 or 9.
Yeah.
That and Calgary Cares were the two best events I've seen in the city in a long time.
In a long time, for sure. Calgary Cares. No, that was a fun one too. Do you remember when RuPaul was our?
Yes. Well, my favorite moment of that was watching a boy who was probably about 20 years old in a thong holding a beer, and a socialite whose husband I know is not necessarily that progressive, having them talk for an hour. And I just watched and I went, that is so good. Those two people are learning about each other's worlds, and we're making a difference through that. That was good. Those are risky times.
Oh, well, we pushed the envelope big time. Yeah. Well, my friend, we're out of time, so I just want to say thank you for all you've done and continue to do for the community. Continued good health. Continued what I'm stumbling over this. You know what I mean?
Bill, I know exactly what you mean. Absolutely. I love you, and I am so proud of all the work you guys are doing. Thanks for continuing to do the work for prostate cancer, and it's so important. And it's so important because it's only funded by Calgarians. It doesn't have government funding. It's necessary. So bravo.
Well, thank you. You inspire me greatly, my friend. Please give my love.
I'll keep making beers with Bulls balls for you.
Okay, will you? I'd like that a lot. I'd like that a lot.
Thanks, guys.
Take care. Over and out. Bye-bye. Over to you, Fuzzy.
Thanks, Bill. Our next guest, Allan Kehler, is one of Canada's most sought-after speakers when it comes to the topic of mental health and wellness. Having persevered through his own mental challenges, along with substance abuse, Allan has learned the valuable life lessons that led him on an incredible path. That his best-selling book, Mental Health: Time to Talk, examines the stigma around men's mental health. Welcome to joining us today. It's good to see you.
Good to see you, Fuzzy. Honored to be here.
We know that there's still a stigma around mental health, especially for men. What do you think is the barrier for men not seeking the help that they need when they need it?
You know, I had an opportunity, Fuzzy, to interview a lot of different men around that exact question. And it goes back to, I guess, some of those scripts that were taught, doesn't it, you know, as a kid. And I found that so many of the men feared that if they reached out for help or if they talked about some of their challenges, that they were going to be perceived as weak, that it would impact the way that they were perceived in their workplace, on and on and on. What I found fascinating, though, is that we are our greatest barriers. You know, what all these men thought was going to happen never actually happened for the most part. In fact, it was the complete opposite, where they found that when they were able to finally reach out for help, they were actually met with compassion, love. Jim hit on it time and time again, this need and importance of support. And so I guess for me, there are still a lot of scripts and a lot of stigma remains, but man, Fuzzy, we are moving in the right way. And the biggest motivating factor for me is the kids, right? The teenagers, the next generation. They are training to be men. And we have got to, I think, model vulnerability, because if they can't see us be vulnerable as men or reach out for help, why would they?
That's exactly it, right? And things change so fast. I mean, you think back to 5 years ago, the conversations that we're having now about mental health openly and publicly, these conversations weren't happening 5 years ago. They weren't happening 3 years ago. I would say within the last 2 years, we've moved a long way with them, and it's through things like your book. Allan, could you share some tips for people who are going through a tough time and looking to enhance their mental wellness?
You know, Fuzzy, I think one of the most important parts is we have to get out of our heads. I spent way too much time living in my head, and when I was struggling with mental illness, you know, I didn't really know how to put a voice to my pain, so I stayed silent. And because I didn't talk about my pain, I obviously suffered more than anyone else, and I ended up withdrawing and isolating, which then made it more challenging. So I think the most important part is just put a voice to your pain. You know, I get the fear and the vulnerability and how difficult it is to reach out for help, but I also understand the rewards. And just to touch on that as an example, I mean, I'm sure you've heard what took place in Medicine Hat, right, with the numerous men who've died by suicide in the last few months. And what's awesome to me is some men created the Inner Man Project, and they wanted to just create a platform where people, men, could come and just reach out for support, share their story, and right away, within a few weeks, 1,300 followers. I mean, what is that? That speaks, Fuzzy, to exactly what you're saying, that, you know, men are ready, they want to talk about it. And the nice thing is they were all met with love. Words like, you're my brother, you know, we get you. You cannot get to that place of being embraced and understood if you don't allow yourself to be vulnerable. So my point is, risk leads to reward, right? And I had to get myself into some really difficult situations. You know, like I got myself in the bipolar support group, Gamblers Anonymous, Alcoholics Anonymous, got in support groups for other men who've been sexually abused. Really difficult. But if you can be vulnerable and you start to hear your story in others, and you know, you're honest and feeling leads to healing, right? If you're willing to look at some of this stuff, then I think we're moving the right way.
Yeah, it's the power of hearing somebody say, yeah, I can relate to that. Yes, I have those feelings too. Yes, I go through that. And that talks about how that team support, that support from friends and family. How do you suggest approaching someone in your circle, whether it's a friend, a family member, a coworker, who may be struggling and you want to support?
Yeah, great question. Fuzzy, I think we overthink this one. You know, elders always tell us that we have 2 ears and 1 mouth for a reason. And I guess to answer that question, I had to look at what I wanted. I never wanted to be fixed, right? I believe that we have 2 basic needs. And the first one is see me, and the second one is hear me. So if you can see that somebody is in any kind of emotional distress, if you just approach them and say something like, don't mean to pry, just want to let you know that I'm concerned, just want to let you know that I'd be more than happy to listen if you ever need to talk. Done. And why that's so powerful is because in that statement you just said, I see you, and you've now given them an invitation to be heard. But whether or not they act on that invite, is that in your control or out of your control?
It's in their control now, so it's not in my control once I throw that out there.
Right? So there really is only so much that we can do. We can empower them to reach out for supports, but this is the hard part, because otherwise it's like this 3-legged race, right? Where we almost become enmeshed with them and we want to help them so bad, but then we become lost in their journeys. And if they fall, what happens to us?
We go down too, yeah.
Right? So this is tough. And I always just empower people to focus back on self. What can you control? Say and do everything in those moments so that you don't have to look back thinking, should have done more. Because silence, Fuzzy, as you know, I mean, that is not the answer, right? It's not. And I learned these lessons the hard way, you know, having to lose my best friend to suicide. Man, like you learn a lot when you go through that, right? And silence, definitely not the answer.
Yeah, I mean, the parallels between mental health and men's health, like physical health, like what we're dealing with at the Prostate Cancer Center here in Calgary. I mean, the parallels are unreal. You talk about men suffering in silence with their mental health, and you also hear about men not suffering in silence and not going and getting checked with regards to their prostate and their physical health. So it's so important to take care of both of those, and that's what we're hoping to do today with this event.
Yeah, love it. You said it perfectly. And I think one of the men I interviewed, Jay Blakely, he says that a lot of men are emotionally constipated, right? Because we don't always know how to feel.
We need a laxative. We need to let it all flow.
Yeah, give us some laxatives. But I think a question I often pose is, do you respond the same way to your physical pain as your emotional pain? Most people say no. Well, should you? Of course. And exactly like your point, if you don't deal with emotions, because emotions are energy, then it can manifest into things like prostate cancer or, you know, high blood pressure, on and on and on.
Allan, if you had one last piece of advice for everyone today, what would it be?
Man, you know, Jim really kept coming back to support. I think that we were not born to fight our battles alone. Michael Landsberg, he wrote the foreword to that book on men and mental health, and he says, you know, with mental illness, there's nothing contagious about it, but there is something contagious about sharing your story. And I have learned that there's nothing more powerful or sacred than one story. So I would empower people to share their story. I mean, exactly like what you're doing today, Fuzzy. You're giving people the opportunity to share, to come together and realize, okay, you know, I'm not alone in this, and you don't have to be alone.
Awesome. Allan, thank you so much for joining us today. If people want to learn more about your journey with mental health, you can be sure to check out your best-selling book. It's called Mental Health, Time to Talk, and you can also check that out via the website, allankehler.com. Thank you so much for your time today, friend.
Thanks, Fuzzy. Right back at you. Take care.
All right, bud. Bill, we're going to throw it back to you right now.
Thank you. Allan is certainly, he's wise beyond his years. What an amazing young man. Very cool. Before we're joined by our final guest, Nicole Gomes, we just want to remind you to please visit keepitincalgary.ca and make a donation. All funds raised go directly to the Calgary Prostate Cancer Center, and funds are used for treatment, research, and support for the individuals in our community affected by prostate cancer. And I would like to give a shout out to Phil and Harriet Libben for their generous donation of $2,500. Thank you very much. Fuzzy, over to you.
Nicole started up the highly successful, independently owned and operated Nicole Gourmet Catering. She then went on to open Cluck and Cleaver, and after competing on the 3rd season of the Food Network's Top Chef Canada, Nicole returned for Top Chef Canada All-Stars Season 5 in 2016, and ta-da! She was crowned the top chef in all of Canada, becoming the first female winner ever, and from there she fought her way on to become the finalist in America's Iron Chef Gauntlet back in 2018. She's currently appearing as a competing judge on the Food Network Canada's Fire Masters. Please welcome Nicole Gomes to the Local Dive. Nicole, how's it going?
It's going well.
Good to see you.
Good to see you too. Thanks for having me.
So Nicole, can you tell us a little bit about why you're here today and why you're so passionate about giving back to the community?
Well, I'll talk about Calgary's community to start with, and I've been part of that community for almost 18 years now. I'm originally from BC, and I have never been more welcomed in a community. Not only, I mean, the camaraderie between everyone and support is really genuine, and when you go to other cities, you realize that it's like home. And cancer is a very big and important subject for me, and important to me because I have a lot of family members currently battling cancer, and really close ones. I've lost a lot of friends to cancer, a lot of loved ones to cancer, and I think it's important to speak up about prostate cancer in particular.
Now, Nicole, can you share how you've overcome adversity in the past and how it's helped to motivate you? Because obviously you're a very successful chef. So what drove you to become that successful person?
Well, life isn't easy, is it? And I can say that's probably part of the strength that I have is overcoming a lot of adversity and trauma. I think overcoming it and realizing that, it is life and it is a thing that happens, and how we deal with it is really interesting for everyone. It's a struggle. And I think, self-awareness is a big one, and realizing that life isn't perfect. You have to overcome things. And I think that makes people stronger. And it's all about attitude. Well, not all about attitude, but a lot of it is about attitude and how we choose to react to it. So, adversity can be dealt with in so many different ways. Everyone processes differently. But, wellness and mindfulness and self-awareness is a really big one. And that's something I've focused on the last 2 years. And I think it can bring a lot of a healthier lifestyle.
Would you say that was there ever a time in your career where you didn't see that clear-cut path where you're like, this isn't going to work out, whether it was from the catering, when you went to start up the catering company, and then when you decided to go on a national competition, or then opening a fast chicken restaurant? Was there anything that you looked at and you're just like, look, there's no clear-cut path, I just have to give up?
Oh my God. How many times should really be asked how many times I wanted to give up? I think the adversity part of it, and not a lot of people know my past, but I've overcome a lot of trauma from childhood till now. And it took a lot of deep looking at yourself. And I think that, I would probably question myself several times in my career why I was doing it. It has not been an easy path. It's a very challenging job. It's not about money. It can get you there, but you have to have that attitude to say, this is going to get me somewhere. I think the biggest thing for me that's helped me survive that is that I love what I do. And passion can take you really far. And I always say this to the team at both the companies, that if you're passionate about something, go after it. It doesn't have to be here. If you're passionate about being a basket weaver, then be a basket weaver, because you're going to do the best you can at it because you love it. And earlier Jim was talking about being spiritual with each other and that mindfulness. And I think that's really important, that we all are interconnected in some way. You meet certain people for a certain reason. I'm very spiritual, and everything happens for a reason.
I found it funny there that you use the term that passion. You need to find that passion, and that's something we talked with a few different people today about having that passion. You obviously have a passion that is food and cooking. What is your go-to meal to cook, and what is the power of making a great meal?
Oh, passion. Yeah, I'm passionate about cooking. I'm passionate about a lot of things, but I'm really passionate about eating.
me too.
So this is a really great question. My favorite meal on the planet is chicken and rice. So
okay.
Like any form of chicken and rice, but roast chicken is one of my favorite go-to meals. And I believe when you're passionate about something and you put that energy towards something, you'll do the best at it and it'll show in the food. And so I always say that cooking is about putting love into the food. You know, everything's surrounded around being a chef in my career and having stressful situations. And people say that about being on TV and competing, like it must be so stressful. I'm like, yeah, you know what? It is, but I love it so much. I'm just going to trek on and I'm going to learn from my mistakes and I'm going to move forward. And I think it's kind of my realization of how I choose to react to things as I get older. You know, like everything in life, stress, struggle, it's all 90% of the result is based on our reactions. And if I can find peace within myself through yoga or mindfulness or taking a walk or doing the things that I enjoy, I think that's kind of how you become successful. That's my measure of success.
Right.
Yeah. If I'm happy and like, this is one of the things that I'm passionate about is giving back where I can. And if I can make any small contribution, that's amazing in any way, form, or shape that I can. So that's why I'm here.
There's nothing more than I love than your chicken. So if I can be passionate about a food, I'm going to be passionate about that Cluck and Cleaver chicken. That is absolutely delicious.
Oh, thank you.
Nicole, thank you so much for taking some time to talk to us today.
Thanks so much for having me.
Bye. Bill, we're going to hand it back to you right now.
Yeah, Cluck and Cleaver, there's no doubt about it. Yum, yum, yum. So do you know what? That brings us to an end, and I really hope that everybody out there have enjoyed today's event and that the speaker's stories have helped inspire and motivate you. And you know, we all struggle through tough times, each and every one of us, but it's nice. In fact, it's uplifting to hear others talk about how they persevered and in some cases even thrived. So Fuzzy, I'm curious, what part resonated with you the most today?
I think the biggest thing that I got out of today, Bill, was that no matter how hard things are for you, there's lots of support out there. Whether it is here with the Prostate Cancer Center here in the city, or if it's family and friends, there are lots of outlets for support out there, and it's important to reach out to those outlets and find out how they can help you. If it's been a while since you've had a physical, then definitely get out there, get that physical. But whether it's family or friends, definitely reach out. There's no need to struggle alone. And part of that is also having knowledge about how you're struggling. You may not know you're struggling, but if you feel like you are, there's a good chance that you are, and you should reach out and get that help.
Well put. And you know, as the horribly overused line that, you know, we're all in it together. But when we all join together, the Calgary Prostate Cancer Center is a perfect example as to what we can accomplish. Because 20 years ago, the center didn't exist. And since in 20 years since we opened, the tens of thousands of men and their families that have benefited from the Prostate Cancer Center, I mean, it's just really phenomenal. And it's all thanks to donors. Again, we couldn't have done it without the community, and they stepped up big time. So, you know, that's why campaigns like the Keep It In Calgary are so vital.
And this is the official kickoff to the Keep It In Calgary campaign. You can learn more. Check out keepitincalgary.ca. Again, that's keepitincalgary.ca. All the money raised stays right here in the city, helping Calgarians. Your donations helping men and their families right here in the city. Keep It In Calgary kicking off today and continues throughout the month of November. And there are many ways for businesses to become involved and support the great work that the PCC is doing here in the city. If you're a local business and you want to become involved, you can sign up on the website. The website again, keepitincalgary.ca. It's right there on the bottom of the screen.
Perfect. Well, you know what, my friend, I so enjoyed sharing this with you today, and I just am so inspired by our guests. And I'll tell you, my heart is really full. So in a great way, and I'm going to go home and I'm going to shed maybe the odd tear of joy, because there are some amazing, amazing people out there, and we're truly blessed to live in such a fantastic community. So thank you to everybody for joining us today. And remember, hashtag live local, give local. Thanks for being with us. Bye.
Excellent, guys.